Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon lunar eclipse in the first decan of Libra. We're going to go on a journey. We're going to look at all the symbols associated with both Aries 1 and Libra 1, because we have the sun in Aries 1 and the moon in Libra 1 opposing each other. So we're going to try to figure out the balance of those two energies. We're going to take the lunation through the rising signs. So you're going to want to stick around and make sure that you get all the info about your particular eclipse season. We're going to do an animal symbol to help guide us through this. Sometimes it can be a challenging time. Sometimes it can be a transformative time. It can be all of those things wrapped up in one particular package. And then we're going to do an I-ching as well to help us through these special times. So if you are joining me today live, welcome. Please drop me a line here in the chat. Let me know that you're here and where you're stopping in from. We've got Tracy Chaplin says, hello, Spencer, from the land of the hedgehog, which I believe is the United Kingdom. Because we don't have hedgehogs here in North America, as far as I know. We've got Uranus Ascending is here from Aurora, Illinois. Nice to see you, friend. And thank you for the coffee that you sent me the other day. I really appreciate that. We'll get into that in a minute, but thank you for your generosity, friend. KP1231 is here. It says, hi, Spencer and everyone. Happy Friday, listening at work. Well, I'm happy to be the voice of your workday afternoon there, KP, down in Cleveland, Ohio, if I am remembering correctly. We have a lot of folks that stop in each week, and it's nice to get to know each other and where we're stopping in from. So hope that your work afternoon is going well over there, KP. Robin Nadira is here. Says, hi, Spencer. Robin from Northern California. Can't wait to see what the eclipse will bring. Yeah, Robin, it's going to be a big one for you, right? It's going to be an angular eclipse for you. So we'll try to break that down for you through your rising sign and help you through it if there's going to be some changes that are probably going to be happening, not just for you, but for everyone, for sure. Jennifer is here. Jennifer says, hello from Ann Arbor, Michigan, right in my backyard. Jennifer and I share southeastern Michigan. This place, it's big enough for the both of us, so here we are. So welcome, Jennifer. Hope you're doing well this afternoon, and good to see you here again, my friend. All right, so those are some friends that we're welcoming in. If there's more of you out there, don't be shy. Drop me a little line. It's always nice to feel your presence here with me as I go through these, astrological musings. But a few announcements before we get to it. We are deep into 2024 at this point, getting ready for the spring equinox. I'm sure that there's been some themes that have been presented to you in this beautiful year of the wood dragon. But if you're still needing some guidance, if you still need to kind of, make sense of what's going on, especially through eclipse season and moving forward, you can reach out for a personalized reading. I do these live streams every week here, but I love working one-on-one with all of you. You can find me at spencermichaud.com. There's a number of different types of readings, including natal readings, which are called Mythos, where we go over your natal story. We have Kairos readings, which are basically transit readings, seeing what type of timing would be best for you. I have options where you can ask one specific question and we can dive into one particular issue in your life. I do teaching. I teach classes. Check it all out. I really enjoy working with all of you. And check that out, spencermichaud.com. It is the final time of Pisces season, final week of Pisces season. And that means that the Pisces season sale that I'm running is about to end. So this is your last chance to pick up the decans of Pisces for 20% off. If you've been following along with the channel, you know that I have a webinar series that I did that each webinar is about 2.5 to 3 hours long. And we go over tarot, we go over mythology, we go over astrological fundamentals within those lectures as well. And you can find them also on my website in the store. The decans of Pisces is 20% off. And if you like the things that I talk about today with the Aries decans, that's going to be 20% off starting in Aries season. So check that out as well. And finally, my beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews of Third Coast Mojo, has some really interesting stuff over at her Etsy shop. She is a magical practitioner who elects much of her magical workings through the astrological chart. And she has a Jupiter and Sagittarius soap that is on sale right now, or that is featured right now, which could be helpful around St. Patrick's Day, particularly. It's pretty good stuff. I bathe in it every once in a while, and I think it's helping me out all right on some level. But she does really great work and has all sorts of offerings over there, including some really nice Venus and Pisces materia. There's other types of soaps available. Really, she does great work, and it's a passion, and I've been witnessing her journey through it, and really just really love the way that she's putting it all together. So go support Tanya at Third Coast Mojo on Etsy. And then finally, if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. If you are present during the live stream, you can also buy a super chat or a super sticker with a little $ in the chat today. That really does go a long way to helping me do the research that I need to do, to buy the books that I need to do research, to carve out the time to be able to do and continue to do this work, all the pre-production that goes into these live streams. All of that is supported through your donations with Buy Me a Coffee and with the super chats and super stickers. I've been trying to improve the production values of the show here, and all of the donations that I receive through those channels go a long way to help that. So thank you so much for everybody who's been very generous around that, and hopefully we'll continue to bring you the best astrology content that we can. Okay. All right, friends. That's what I've got going on here for announcements. Let's welcome a few more friends here today. Laura Elizabeth is stopping in, says, hi, everyone from Vancouver, Washington. Loving the DST now that it's here. Daylight savings time. Yeah, that's, we're all adjusting. I think this week for me in particular has been trying to adjust my Taurus moon routine. I'm somewhat of a creature of habit, and I have a very specific routine that really gets messed up when the time change happens, but we're starting to work through it. I don't know if everyone else has been feeling like a little sloggy this week. I mean that like soggy, but also moving slowly, a slog. So yeah, it's nice that we have some extra hours in the evening. I just wish they would choose one or the other so we didn't have to kind of keep switching back and forth. But Laura, I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that it's working for you. Candy Corn is here, says, hello, nice to see you, Candy Corn. Hope you're doing well wherever you're joining us from. Diana McGrew is here, says, hi from Texas. Nice to see you, Diana. How you doing? This is a new name and face. Welcome, my friend. It's nice to have you here with us here today. Tarja is joining us, says, good evening from Finland. Yes, it is probably a little bit later over there. I know we're starting a little bit later today. I like to schedule these live streams for a fortuitous planetary hour. And since the time change happened, 1 p.m. Eastern time is now the Mars hour. And I would prefer not to do these live streams during the Mars hour. I like doing it during the solar hour. So apologize for those of you in Europe who are having to stay up maybe an hour later to catch this, but I think it'll go better if we elect the live stream better. So thank you, Tarja, for spending your evening with me here today. Jennifer says, loving the sunshine and saw the forsythia blooming yesterday. Yes, very nice. We've been getting kind of an early spring here in southern Michigan, so I'm enjoying the flowers popping up around my garden too. I'm getting really excited about gardening for sure. Raven Gray is here. Says hello from sunny Kansas. Nice to see you, Raven. How you doing, my friend? Raven is a student that has been in our book clubs and a great astrologer, just a really awesome gardener as well. So Raven, nice to see you, friend, and hope everything's going well for you down in Kansas. Candy Corn says, can you buy the whole Deccan series in one shot? That's a great question, Candy Corn. You can. If you would like to do that and you are interested in some kind of discount, reach out to me. We can work something out. There isn't a total package right now just for sale in the store, but I'm always willing to work with people if they would like to buy the whole series, and if they need me to make it more financially feasible for you. So yeah, send me an email, spencermichaudastrology@gmail.com. Uranus Ascending said there's a wee bit of Irish in us all. Yes, maybe. I'm wearing green today. So St. Patrick's Day isn't really a holiday that I'm super I don't get super excited about it. I like Pisces season, so this weekend, to me, this St. Patrick's Day weekend always marked out the Gem and Mineralogical show that my partner and I used to like to go to in Jackson, Michigan. That's sort of what it reminds me of. Um, I'm not a big drinker, so it's not like a drinking holiday for me, and some of the history around it is questionable at best. So, but I do enjoy celebrating. I do love the color green. So if it's an excuse just to wear green on a specific day, I think I'll fit right in. Lauren G says hi from St. Louis. Nice to see you, Lauren. Hope you're doing well down there by the big silver arch. Yes, just call me a sloth, says Uranus Ascending. Yes, we're feeling that slogginess, right? KP's feeling the slogginess. Well, she has Saturn on her Mars. Uranus Ascending says, rain yesterday, beautiful sunshine today. Yes, I'm enjoying the sun. I'll have to soak a little bit of that up this weekend. Uranus Ascending says, I have both equal Irish and German on the dad's side. Oh, that's good. So you're feeling it, right? I'm not sure how much Irish I have in my heritage. I am English, Swiss German, and Swiss French. My last name Michaud is Swiss French, and I also have Norwegian heritage. I'm part of the Thorsons on my mother's side. So Beckways were the English part, the Thorsons, and then I have Baumgartner ancestry, and then the Michauds. The Baumgartners were the Swiss Germans, and the Michauds were the Swiss French. So I'm not sure if there's any Irish in there, but I've met a number of lovely people from Ireland, and a number of them have stopped in the show. So just big shout out to Fionn and friends over there. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anyone. That's the first name that popped into my mind. And Rachel, we've got Rachel joining us from Ireland as well. So yeah, if that's a holiday that works for you and that's part of your routines, more power to you. Okay, my friends. Okay, let's see. Let's start diving in. What do you think? Let's see. Yeah, Uranus sign. I don't really celebrate St. Patty's Day. Husband sometimes make corned beef and cabbage. Now that's something I can get on board with. I love food, so whatever holiday meals are part of a celebration, I'm into it. And Tanya is an exceptional chef, and I did see her start brining some local corned beef from our friends down at Taylor Farm, who are amazing farmers in our local area and do really great job taking care of their animals and raising everything ethically. So I'm excited about that. Okay. Oh, we've got Tracy with 25% Irish ancestry. Awesome. Okay, friends. So let's start diving into this this eclipse. What do you say? So we are here today to talk about the full moon lunar eclipse in the first 10 degrees of Libra. Now, we'll pull up the chart. We'll start taking a look at it just to get our bearings. We'll make it bigger so we can see it. There we go. I'll see if I can start circling stuff. So, of course, full moons are always the opposition of the sun and the moon. And in this case, with an eclipse, we have a very powerful full moon that is near one of the nodes of the moon. And in this case, the moon is going to be passing closely to the south node of the moon, which is also called Ketu. The sun is going to be relatively close to the north node of the moon, which they call Rahu. Now, Rahu and Ketu are names for basically the same demon that tried to swallow the sun in Eastern mythology. And he tried to swallow not only the sun, but he swallowed the elixir of life. I guess it would be a more accurate description. We see it as the darkness swallowing the sun or the moon, respectively. But we have Rahu and Ketu as that demon that is trying to attain immortality. Now, there was another deity in this mythological system that said, no, you can't swallow that elixir of immortality. Everyone's got to pass on and pass through. And basically severed that demon's head. And since Rahu, Ketu, had already consumed part of that immortality elixir, it didn't die. So now that there's this floating severed head it's hungry, that can never be satisfied because it doesn't have a body. So it's hungry for more. So we have the sun conjoining the North Node, a place of insatiable desire, number one. So keep that in mind. We have the moon conjoining the body of the demon or the dragon. It's also been described as a dragon that is processing old material, old experiences, old ideas. It is the digestive system of the universe, okay, or of a universe or of a section or a part of it. K2 tends to be a place where situations resolve, or where energy or people or things, ideas are leaving our physical experience. Rahu tends to be a place or a gate, I guess even you could even call it on some level. This is the only time where I would consider the word portal to be appropriate, right? Eclipses can be like energy portals for new experiences to come through. Rahu is one where energy is coming in to manifest. So if we keep those basics in mind, that will help us to understand what this eclipse might mean for us, okay? So one of the things that we're looking at is that we have the sun shining a spotlight on a spiritual essence, in my estimation, okay, like a conscious design that is trying to manifest within the lunar body. So think about like conscious thought, idea, spirit that is trying to infuse itself into a physical form. The moon representing the body. The moon is a collector of that light. So if you think about it in that regard, you can look at the motivations that the sun might be providing at a full or a new moon, and then you can look to the moon to see how that might play out in our lived experience. So we should start really with a full moon lunar eclipse with what the sun is asking for. So in this case, and I'm going to bring up a part of my Aries Decans webinar, first before we really dive into this. We are seeing the sun at 5 degrees of Aries. It is fairly close to the North Node at 15 degrees of Aries. We will have an eclipse paired with this one a few weeks later. Eclipses generally always come in pairs or in threes, okay? And that's why we have an eclipse period in between where we are seeing this transition time, this chapter marker, this new narrative unfolding. So the sun is asking for individuation. The sun is asking to separate from the collective, to stand out under its own power. And let's take a look at this here. So here is the Aries Decans webinar, and we're looking at Aries 1. And this is a little Decan flashcard I did with Aries 1, which Book T and Book of Thoth called the Lord of Dominion. And that's related to some old colonial language where we were seeing a colony that was splitting off from the parent country to try to establish its own sovereignty. Austin Coppock calls it the axe. We have a spirit or a daimon from 36 heirs of the zodiac, a Hellenistic fragment that shows us maybe another lens to look through with the Decans. And in this case, that daimon is Adoneus. And Adoneus is a kind of a fancy word for Hades. So we have Pluto, Hades, Adoneus, the lord of the underworld, a figure that has been associated with death, but also renewal on some level as well. Like we see Adoneus bursting through the soil in some forms of the myth to abduct Persephone and bring her down to the underworld. On some level, you can think of that energy as the seed bursting through the soil to create new growth. And that is a violent act. There's yang energy that wants to burst through the surface. It takes power to burst through that hardened earthen surface to create new life. And there's this energy of spring that is very it's headstrong, like we've seen described in Aries. It is singularly focused. It is act now, think later type of thing. So some themes that we see with this decan throughout some of the historical references. So severing the umbilical cord. If you think about Pisces as a return home to undifferentiated consciousness, like the ocean of consciousness. So like releasing a body to return to spirit, or dissolving the boundaries or the illusion of boundaries between all of us. Aries is saying, okay, we've done that. We've reconnected with spirit. We've understood what our why is potentially. And now we're going to take action. Mars, this is a double Mars ruled phase. We're going to take action to be able to take that spiritual essence and embody it, right? To force through the surface soil to start to create a new life, a new season, a new astrological year. So at one point in this process, we have to reject what was sustaining us from the collective. So the way that I see Aries 1 is we are saying, look, we want to make a new start. We know what we gained from our connection with the divine, with the collective. And now we have to say, I'm going to reject this part of it so that I can say what I am in the subsequent decans of Aries. Aries 2, where we're going to see the next eclipse on April the 8th, is all about saying, this is who I am. This is my royal decree. But first we have to reject what we are not. And we need to sometimes reject an alternative viewpoint. So this decan of Aries just kind of is a bulldozer. It's just running roughshod over maybe any other desire with the singular focus of trying to achieve, I don't know, it's described almost as cellular mitosis by some of the decanic authors, right? Like splitting the one into many, right? That's why we have the axe here. So Chokhmah in Atziluth is the Kabbalistic tree of life sephira, or energy center. And Chokhmah is like a flash of wisdom or flash of awareness. So this might be a flash of inspiration in the fire sign of Aries related to the wands and the Two of Wands that we see here. You could see in this Two of Wands tarot card an avatar potentially of Alexander the Great trying to think about the new world that he might want to conquer. Now, I know that that's problematic in our modern understanding and our attempts to decolonize our thinking. But you can apply this metaphorically in different ways that don't necessarily build on that heritage of oppression. There are all sorts of projects in our life that we may want to grow into, that we may need to have a display of yang force to begin. I mean, really what we're trying to do is overcome inertia in this decan. And we may have a flash of inspirational awareness, an idea that will really get us moving, right? So splitting of the one, cellular mitosis, raw force, undiluted yang, the sperm breaking through the wall of the ovum. I love that as an image for this decan. The bursting of the seed husk or bursting through to the surface. So questions you can ask yourself about the sun in Aries 1, the spring equinox, the beginning. How can you individuate? What is not you? What is you? Okay, so to understand what you are not, you need to start to get an idea of who you really are as an individual, outside of partnership, outside of a community, outside of a social group. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to always just completely move under your own power without any thought of anyone else's needs. And this is part of the thing we're going to try to balance here at the eclipse, is other people's needs versus our own desires. Because we are always working in relationship to others. Even seeds that are bursting through the surface have underground roots that are connected to other systems. So it is a myth to think of Aries completely as just this completely separate, independent entity, because I'm of the opinion that just does not exist. And this is something you learn when you study like indigenous cultures, like the book Sand Talk tries to walk us through that even with the most yang individuated energy, it is still part of a system. It's still part of a community. It's still part of a relationship. Everything is relationship. But you can ask yourself, how can you break some new ground? How can you overcome that inertia and burst through the surface? Where is brute force necessary and where is it excessive? Those are great questions to ask yourself. Different tools are appropriate for different situations. An axe might be appropriate for splitting wood, but it's really not appropriate for, I don't know, a haircut potentially, right? Like those are two very vastly different jobs, and you have to understand what type of tool is necessary for what type of job and what type of force is necessary for what type of job. What new territory do you want to conquer? And this could be more about an individual thing that you want to conquer. Maybe it's a bad habit that you want to release. Maybe it's a new habit that you want to bring into your life. You can apply some of those themes in an individual way. And finally, what new beginning is worth fighting for? Oftentimes we fail to begin something because of our passivity. And Aries is a sign that says, you don't have forever. You have to live in this moment. If you want to achieve this, you got to get to it. No more deliberation. No more asking permission. No more thinking. No more weighing. No more. Just go. That's this energy of Aries. And I think it's really important, again, to start here, because this is what is animating the lunar body. Okay, so if you think about what the motivations are to maybe even trying to see things from multiple perspectives, the seed and the core of that is our personal interest. So which there's a paradox there, right? But I'll get to how I feel the moon might be a part of this equation in a second. But before I do, I want to kind of talk a little bit about what might be animating the sun in particular. And I will just I'll welcome some friends here while we're doing that. So let's take this off the stage for a minute. Okay. And we've got my friend Devin stopping in. Says, "Hi, Spencer, excited for the Aries Ingress, and you're invited to our party." All right. All right. I could use a little party. Send me the details, whatever form that is. If it's a metaphorical party or if it's a real party, just let me know. Messages is here. How you doing, Messages? I hope you have a good one for us today. And Lauren G is stopping in and says, "My midheaven is in this deck, and I am very happily self-employed." Yeah, it's perfect way to utilize that midheaven is moving under your own power. Okay, so if I was to show you what is animating that sun, we'll take this in stages, right? So if you see here, we have the sun being animated by Mars. Okay, so here is Mars in the first decan of Pisces. Now, the interesting thing about this, and I'll circle it for you. So the challenging / interesting part about this is that we are dealing with something that is in aversion to its host. I'm just putting this up on there we go. Okay. So here's the host of the sun, Mars in Mars in Pisces 1. Yeah, sure, square, that'll work. So what is Mars trying to do? And what might it be failing to provide because of its aversion to the sun? Now, aversion is a fancy way of thinking about a planet in a blind spot that does not have a traditional aspect to the planet that it's trying to provide resources for. In Hellenistic astrology, we have what's called the guest-host relationship, which basically means that these signs are temples that each planet has a responsibility to provide resources for. And right now the sun is traveling through the temple of Mars, but Mars is not, quote unquote, aware that it's there or able to provide those resources. Now, there is one interesting part about this where even though Mars might not be able to provide resources, the sun is in its exaltation in this particular place. And there are some forms of astrology from my understanding that show us that we might not necessarily need the domicile lord Mars to have a witnessing aspect for this planet to become empowered if it's able to work under its own power, which the sun can in its exaltation. But if we do look to Mars for some themes, Mars in Pisces 1 is an indirect force. It is, I've seen Austin Coppock compare it to like Tai Chi or something of that nature, where we're trying to work with energies and currents, or you could even think of it like jujitsu or something where to be able to engage in combat, you have to use someone's energy against them, or flow with their energy. So if like someone comes at you, you move aside and you keep pulling them in the direction that they started going in, and they fall over while you stay stable. So there is some subterfuge that is being provided to the sun, or maybe attempting to be provided. Maybe there's an undercurrent of that. I guess the question becomes, are those themes really present because Mars is in aversion? I tend to think that some of the themes are still there. It just does not have a direct line of communication. So what does this mean for the sun? Well, it means that the sun is kind of moving under its own power. It is not asking Mars for help, even though Mars would potentially want to help through maybe softening the blow a little bit, maybe of being a little bit more indirect. And because it is not able to provide resources, we may be a little bit more direct than we would be otherwise. We may be just kind of barreling through and trying to get what we want through our own, yang force. KP says, this eclipse is on my moon, listening intently. Yes, for people who have this eclipse, this is, whenever we have eclipses on our natal placements, we're going to definitely feel it pretty intensely in our life. Devin says Mars and Pisces, like the jet stream currents in the ocean. Yeah, that's a good comparison as well. I always like to think of Mars and Pisces as a shark underwater too. Like it's kind of swimming around, and every once in a while it can strike, and you may not see it coming is the other thing. So I don't want to spend too much time on the Mars aspect of it because it does not have a traditional aspect to the sun. So if we move on from that and we start taking a look at the moon. So we have the moon here. The moon is going to be in Libra 1. Now, this is interesting, okay? So we have the moon here, and we'll circle it for you. Here is the moon, and it is in opposition to the sun. Okay, so this, again, that's we always see that at full moons. So here's this opposition energy, and the moon is being hosted by Venus. Now, this is another situation where Venus does not witness the sun or the moon. It's an inversion to both of those planets. So even though we will take a look at what Venus would hope to provide, keep in mind that there isn't a direct line of communication from those planets to one another. Now, I believe there is a secret line of communication via this dignity called Antitia or counter Antitia. I'm trying to remember exactly which one it would be between Libra and Pisces, but that would be almost a secret line of communication between them. So what might we expect from the moon in the first decan of Libra? Now, we can go over to the Libra 1 decan webinar. Okay, so here is the decans of Libra. And we are looking at the Two of Swords as a tarot card syncretization. We have opposite themes to what we just discussed with Aries 1. So awareness of the other. This is a decan that is associated with maybe a desire for peace or restoring peace to a situation rather than running roughshod. There's a yin energy to it, right? Although we do have a yang air sign, like a quote-unquote masculine sign within the dignity system. So actively pursuing peace rather than our own self-interest. Now, this is interesting because there is a spirit in this decan called the Uranes, or aka the Furies. So there's actually some righteous indignation that comes up in the first decan of Libra. If for us to come to a point of peace and a point of balance, we often become aware of an unfairness or an imbalance. So many times when people have placements in Libra I, people don't necessarily think of them as like peaceful. They may think of them as angry, but at the end of the day, that anger is because of seeing something that isn't fair. And I've dealt with a lot of Libra I folks that are wonderful people who desire peace, but they are fearless advocates for the underdog, for social justice, for shining a spotlight on things that aren't fair. So themes we can think about with Libra I: awareness of the other. Remember, we have Chokmah here. So this is Chokmah in Yetzirah, which is an awareness of someone else's ideas, someone else's viewpoint. Okay. Righteous indignation we can talk about with this decan. Fighting for the underdogs, social justice, exposure of an inequality. We have like whistleblowers and people who sound the alarm with this particular decan. So questions you can ask yourself about the moon, and I'll talk about how it might function in a second, but what is fair? You may be asking yourself questions of what is fair and what isn't. You may have some very intense personal desires that are arising because of the opposition with the sun. But then you have to take a moment, take a breath, and say, well, I know that I want this really bad personally, but how does this fit into my relationships? How does this fit in to an interconnected community and world? This is the thing that I dislike about when we start to talk about Aries sometimes, is oftentimes when we get these very adamant self-propelled energies, a lot of times people will say, well, do what you want because that's what you've got to stand up for what you believe in and all these things, which has its time and its place. But oftentimes people do not take into consideration its effect on their community, on the other. Just because you desire something doesn't give you a right to hurt other people in its pursuit. Okay, this is where we really run into the idea of personal freedom versus living in a cohesive, peaceful society with one another. And we see this in America right now, where people have really taken that to an extreme as far as their own personal liberties versus, we really had to take a lot of these questions into account over the last few years when we had a community event like a global pandemic, where people were trying to assert their individual rights, but those assertions of their individual rights had an effect on their social milieu. And it really does bring up a lot of questions about where is the line between what you want versus how it's going to affect someone else and what they want. So you see what I mean there? If the pursuit of our own individual desires, freedoms, liberties, etc., infringes on someone else's ability to have those same freedoms, those same desires, then we have to come to a compromise. And this is part of, I think, what the eclipse is going to be asking us, and is where is the line between our individual desires that we want to pursue at any cost, that are almost insatiable because of the sun's conjunction with the North Node, versus how do we find a compromise? How can we find what works for everyone so that everyone can have at least some semblance of personal sovereignty, of agency, of self-directedness? Okay? So, other questions you might be reflecting upon besides what is fair. Has there been an ethical breach? There may be an exposure of something where somebody didn't take someone else's side into account and just bulldozed over and created a real problem. And then you have to find the way to start rebalancing that. What is disturbing harmony? We may be pretty aware of not being able to find a compromise right now. As I'm recording this, Venus is still in what is called a malefic enclosure, where it is stuck between Mars and Saturn. So many of you have probably been feeling between the rock and the hard place, unable to find the right compromise between your individual desires and that of someone else's. Because Venus is the planet that tries to harmonize and say, okay, let's figure out what works for everyone. And that hasn't been available to us for almost a month. And it's painful, and it sucks the joy out of things. The good news is Venus has moved into her exaltation. So she's at the height of her powers, even though she is enclosed right now. And by the time we get to this eclipse, Venus will have conjoined with Saturn and will be released from the malefic enclosure. And I'll show you that in a second. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So understand that Venus will not be enclosed by the time we get to this eclipse, which is good news. So other questions. What darkness has been exposed? What is not me? Like if you try to get aware of what is you with the sun and say, this is me and this other thing, I'm going to reject this other thing. How can you respect someone else's ability to say, well, what you want is not me, and this is what I am? Those are always the negotiations we're having to work through. Okay, so let's bring the chart back up, and we'll come back to the moon in Libra, and I'm going to look through some of your comments here. Mariana is here. What's up, Mariana? Says, hi, Spencer. I have Saturn in Aries conjoined the lot of spirit in the 11th. So I'm curious about this eclipse as a future window. Ooh, that's cool, Mariana. So this is, let's see. You would be a Gemini Rising, question mark? If you're, I'm using whole sign here, potentially. So once I get to Gemini Rising, I'll break that down in depth for you, Mariana. And, we'll get some individualized attention with that. But thanks for being here, friend. Jennifer says Mars will be on my MC. Ooh, so this might be another big one for you, Jennifer. Yeah, Devin says yes, it's in Antisha. Jennifer says, don't get Antisha. Can you explain? Briefly. So Antisha is. I'm trying to remember. I always get these confused a little bit, but there are signs of equal daylight on either side of the solstice and the equinox. So the sun has equal daylight on either side of Libra and Pisces. So they have a relationship with one another that is not apparent. It's not a traditional aspect, but they have some sort of synergy with one another because of their equal daylight on either side of that. And there's also the other version, I believe, is equal ascensional times of a sign. And I don't have enough time to totally get into that today, but they're also described as seeing and hearing signs. So if you take some of those themes and kind of apply it, that they might have a secret affinity for one another or a secret opposition to one another, that can help you with that particular concept. Carol says, oh, my Venus. Yeah, I know. Venus, us Venusians. I include myself as a Taurus moon ruled by Venus. I've been going through some stuff this last little bit. It's just a lot of, I don't know. It's been a time. It's been difficult to get to that point of joy, for sure. But again, it's temporary, and that's one of the beauties of astrology, is learning that sometimes even the real difficult things that we're going through have an expiration date. Tracy says, this makes so much sense, doubly. So as I have natal opposition on 9-degree Libra in the first house and natal north node in the first. Yeah, so you're going to be dealing with this one, Tracy, with your cardinal rising sign, right? This is going to be a big one for you. KP says, resonating with the rock of the hard place. Spot on. Yeah, a lot of us have been going on this journey of just feeling stuck. And sometimes there isn't an immediate solution, and that's really painful. Sometimes we just have to live into the answer and keep working through it and be patient. I think this is what has been tested in my own life, is just patience in a situation that doesn't have a great answer. And I'm not going to get into it today, but there's we're all going through journeys where we're trying to figure out what is best for ourselves versus what is best for another party, another situation, etc. Yeah, Devin's talking about the Antisha mirrored light. That's a good way of thinking of it. Marcella is here. I had a great aunt named Marcella, so that's a cool name, Marcella. Nice to see you, friend. Just tuned in and not sure this is still live. It is still live. You are here live with us. I have Libra ascendant with a Scorpio moon and Sag sun. Any words of wisdom for me? Well, Marcella, we are going to do the rising signs towards the second half of the show, so stick around, and I will go through every individual rising sign. But just very briefly, Libra ascendants are going to be dealing with the eclipse in what's called an angular house. So when we have an eclipse in either house 1, 4, 7, or 10, we might feel it a lot more personally. So just you are probably going to be dealing with a situation with a partner where you're trying to balance out your own personal perspective with another's. And that's going to be much more intense for you than it might be for other rising signs because you have that Libra ascendant that is angular. Okay, yes, Jennifer, we're there is, we could wax poetic for a long time about each of these individual Hellenistic techniques, which, I tend to be fairly thorough with a lot of those things, but I'm trying to be a little bit more efficient of late to make sure that I just get to everything within a reasonable amount of time. But yeah, yes, KP says, yes, glad to know I'm not alone. Yeah, you're definitely not alone, KP. Like, this has been a rough couple weeks. It's Venus enclosed is one of the tougher things that I think I've experienced as an astrologer, because I value peace, I value harmony so highly, and when it is locked away, it's very painful. Okay, so another thing about the moon. Let's contextualize the moon within the rest of this chart. So as you can see, we have the sun conjoining the north node. Chiron is present here. I don't use Chiron too much as a traditional astrologer, but for those of you who do, Chiron is an asteroid that people tend to relate to either teaching and learning because of its association with the centaur Chiron, who is an ancient teacher, but also a wound that might be difficult to heal because Chiron, the centaur, was wounded by one of, I believe it was Hercules' arrows that was tipped with the Hydra poison, and he had to live with that wound for a long period of time until he finally was allowed to die by taking Prometheus's place on the rock where he had been chained in punishment for stealing fire from the gods. So we may have some challenges to asserting our own individual will. It may be painful to do so. It may be opening up a wound that we might even have some self-doubts around. Oftentimes we don't advocate for our own needs because we doubt our own judgment. And that might be part of this equation as well. We also have Mercury co-present with Aries, that Aries stack up. And keep in mind too, Mercury, now in Aries, is getting ready to retrograde on the 1st of April. So a lot of the decisions that we might make in favor of our own individual wills may be up for renegotiation in the beginning of April. So I don't think that this eclipse is going to be the final answer by any means. I think that even if we do make, I would encourage you not to make ultimatums. That's not a good way to go about your life. But if we do tend to take a strong stance on something, we may have to backtrack it potentially when Mercury stations retrograde in Aries. But back to the moon here, you can see that the Sun, Mercury, and Chiron are really the only planets besides Pluto, I guess, that are aspecting this lunation. Mars, Saturn, and Venus and Neptune are all in aversion in Pisces. Jupiter and Uranus are in aversion on the other side of that stack up. So there's not a whole lot of other influences from other planets. So let's think about what the moon is going to be providing here. So the moon having extra dignity by face, we are able to collect light, right? Like the moon is getting an extra boost as far as being able to see another person's perspective. Now, the real challenge, I think, of this lunation is that because it is an eclipse, if you go out and you look at an eclipse, I wouldn't recommend looking directly at an eclipse. I know that there's everybody's making plans to go view the eclipse. I don't recommend that. As a magically adjacent person, eclipses are malefic events, right? And staring into one was not good energy traditionally. Now you can do with that what you will. So you can, if you're not as superstitious about it as I am, go ahead, stare straight into it. But again, it's something that you're not really advised to do from traditional literature. I'll leave it at that. It's also not a time to charge your crystals or things like that if you're into that kind of thing. Eclipses are unstable, right? They are wild cards, and that's not something that you're trying to like capture, because it's not a capturable thing. These are fated events. Because of the nodes of the moon, we're really seeing big shifts in our narrative stories happening around these periods. Now, if you were to go observe this phenomenon, what you'd see is that one of the lights at each particular eclipse is being swallowed up by darkness or by something that makes it look like it is bleeding. So in this case, when we have a lunar eclipse, the moon turns red. The moon starts to bleed. The moon is what is eclipsed, right? So we're kind of shutting off this energy. We're swallowing up the ability to see someone else's perspective, which in turn supercharges the sun and what it is desiring. So this may be a turning point where we are releasing the ability to see something from someone else's perspective, the ability to want to come to a compromise, where we could also see this as releasing the need to ask someone else for permission. There could be a circumstance in our life where we've been indecisive, where we say, well, I just haven't made any decision because I'm weighing both sides of it, and I just can't make everybody happy. Well, there might be situations where you can't make everybody happy, and you just have to choose. And that's painful. That can be difficult. That can lead to narrative shifts. It also can be empowering, because if you look at this in a series, the next eclipse is the North Node conjoining the Sun and Moon in the first or the second decan of Aries. So a powerful new start that is more individually focused. So for us to be able to have that powerful new chapter of individuation, sometimes we have to release something that we've been doing to please someone else. Maybe it's maybe it's because we aren't having confidence in ourselves, because we don't believe in ourselves, with Chiron there potentially. So what do you do with that? Well, I think first of all, it never hurts to attempt to see things from multiple perspectives. I'm a big believer in empathy. I'm a big believer in communication and talking things out and trying to find compromises. That being said, the rock and the hard place that you might feel right now with Venus, the resolution may be to, when Venus comes together with Saturn, that's when it's broken up. You see this? We will be just coming off of Venus's conjunction with Saturn. Now, Saturn in Pisces too can say, here is the division between your reality and your ideal. And we can feel it very painfully. We can feel exiled from being able to harmonize those two visions. Venus is going to come along and say, look, we know what is and isn't possible. Let's do the best we can within the limitations that we have. And let's surrender to the process. That to me is what the Venus-Saturn conjunction in Pisces 2 is going to be all about. It says, look, it might not be able to get everything you want from your dream. Reality is just not going to support every single vision. But let's do the best we can within difficult circumstances. And that's going to probably loosen whatever is getting us feeling stuck right now. So when we get to this eclipse period, we may have already gone through that process of gotten clear about what is possible and what isn't, what dreams are sustainable and which ones we need to just say, you know what, that's just not a dream we're going to be able to bring into fruition right now. And I think that we may have to stop deliberating over a choice. Oftentimes, and I talk about this a lot in my Decans of Libra webinar, which you can find on the store on my website. No pressure, no sales pitch, but it's there if you want it. When we talk about the story of Paris, and Paris was a youth that was given a difficult choice between the goddesses of Olympus, trying to choose who was the fairest. And there was this golden apple that was thrown into the mix by Eris, the goddess of strife and discord, and put poor Paris in a no-win situation where no matter what choice that he made, he was going to disappoint one of these very powerful women and forces, goddesses. And to me, and this is something that Liz Green talks a lot about in her book, The Astrology of Fate. To me, the indecision of Libra is oftentimes a result of fully understanding the consequences of the choice that you don't make. Let that sink in for a second. Fully understanding the consequences, Saturn. Remember, Saturn is exalted in Libra. Fully understanding the consequences of your action. So, oftentimes we'll waffle with Libra placements or Libra transits because we know that by making a choice, by choosing Aphrodite, we might upset, the other two goddesses. We might upset Athena. We might upset, who was the other one? What was Zeus's wife's name again? Jesus, come on. Give it to me, brain. It starts with an H. Come on. Somebody put it in the chat. I'll remember it. I'll be like, yes, that's it. Hera. Sorry, Hera. There it is. I was getting it confused with Helen in my brain because that was the prize that Paris won, was the most beautiful woman in the world. So beauty. Yeah, there you go. Big stuff. Hera. So young Paris had to incur the wrath of both Athena and Hera by not choosing them. So part of our challenge during this eclipse is going to be making the best choice we can while fully understanding the consequences of the choice that we're not making, and then just kind of living with that, right? There are going to be situations where by making a choice, someone else is going to be disappointed by the choice that we made. And that's not always our fault, right? I think that oftentimes we take on this guilt. We take on the weight of someone else's disappointment. And some of that is okay. I don't mean to be waffling about this, but I don't want this to be a lecture about do whatever you want and don't worry about hurting other people's feelings. I think that that's a mistake. And I really resist when I hear people speaking like that, because that's just not how society works. But there are situations where you just kind of have to move on with your life, and there will be some disappointment that may not be your fault. Yes, maybe it is a result of your decision, but there may not be a better solution to that. So I hope that helps contextualize the eclipse, because the moon is close to the south node, we may have to reduce our involvement in the other perspective so that we can make a new individualized start. Okay? So we're going to be reducing Libra energy, potentially increasing Aries energy, and trying to navigate what that might mean for those two topics in our charts. And they will be different for everyone. Like in this random Capricorn rising chart, and I'll go through this for all the rising signs today, but our desire to individuate in the fourth house of home and family and domestic situation may necessitate a reduction of codependence within a professional situation or within a public situation. Okay. There may be something where somebody wants something from you in a job, like a coworker or like a boss, and you just can't do it because it's taking away from your time with your family. And you just have to say, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to come in on the weekend. I need to spend some time with my family, or I need to do this or that. You see what I'm saying? And yes, that the person on the other side of that decision may be disappointed, but you're doing what you need to do so that you can recharge your well to be the best that you can when you need to come back into relationship with others. Okay? And this isn't about winning and losing. This isn't about you making a choice, you're the winner and the other person is the loser. It's about what can you do that will fill your own cup on some level so that you can be the best version of yourself when called upon to be a part of your community once again. Does that make sense? It cycles. Sometimes we have to make choices based on our own needs. Now if you think about it in context of nature, that seed has to force through the ground to spread its leaves out. But once it does, it's eventually part of the community again. It grows. It needs to grow on its own. It needs to split its cellular mitosis so that it can grow and become a more complex being. But eventually that plant will sprout a flower. And eventually the bees will visit that flower. It will pollinate other flowers. It will create its own seeds that will become part of the landscape, that will feed other animals, that will be able to be related to other plants and other parts of the ecosystem. So it doesn't end at Aries. Do you see what I'm saying? And our charts don't end at one point of our sun, of our moon, etc. We are all of the signs. We are all of nature. We just happen to be having a few focal points that we identify with. But make no mistake, even if you have a fucking Aries stellium, I'm just feeling the Aries energy right now. If you have, we'll repeat it for emphasis. We have a fucking Aries stellium. That does not mean that you aren't part of a community. Your energy may be necessary to burst through the ground in some kind of situation, but then you become someone who is helping to facilitate the interrelationship of humanity, of creation, of life itself, whatever it is. So that is what I feel about this, the moon part of this, and the relationship that we're experiencing. So we've had the moon conjunct K2, a release of that Libran lunar energy potentially. We have the host, Venus in Pisces 2. Venus is in its exaltation. Again, Venus is not able to witness either one of the sun or the moon. So even though Venus is excellent at finding compromises in Pisces, she doesn't have a direct access. She has that potential secret access to the moon through that antisha, that mirrored light. But you may have to look harder for it. You may have to go through different channels. We have the sun in Aries 1 and its exaltation. So we have a strong desire to be a focal point, an individual point of consciousness. We've talked about Venus moving out of its malefic enclosure before the eclipse. So being released from a difficult situation and then finally moving on. And then finally, we have the first aspect of the moon will be an opposition to Mercury. So this is a technique in Hellenistic astrology where we talk about what is going to happen after the moon is released from the bond. Okay. And that is a technique where the moon is either within 15 degrees of a conjunction with the sun or an opposition with the sun. And it was sort of a time period where the moon's ability to create and manifest was held in check. Okay. And once it's released from the bond, it's able to create once again. So what happens once the moon is outside of that 15-degree opposition with the sun? Well, it makes an opposition to Mercury. So the moon moving through the third decan of Libra is all about finding calm within the storm. Like, how can you find an inner peace while everything is swirling around you? And how can you bring that calm, centered energy to a situation rather than being cast about on a sea of everyone else's ideas, emotions, etc.? And making that opposition to Mercury. Mercury in the third decan of Aries. Remember, Mercury is going to station retrograde very shortly. Mercury in that decan is all about stating your case in a way to try to convince someone towards your own point of view. That decan of Aries is ruled by Eros. Okay, it's a Venus decan where we're trying to make our viewpoint more attractive to someone else. So we may have this push and this pull about trying to convince someone of our point of view, but we may need to do it in a way that is graceful. Okay, it's you use humor, you use kindness, you try to make your idea more attractive. Oftentimes people aren't going to get on board if you try to hammer them over the head with it. So this might be a period of time of utilizing all of your best social skills in service of maybe winning people over to your side. Now, you may win them over to your side temporarily, and then they may change their mind when Mercury stations retrograde. So keep that in mind as well, because Mercury is going to station retrograde from April 1st until April the 25th. And that is, I believe, going to be when Mercury is around 27 degrees of Aries, and it's going to station all the way back to 15 degrees Aries before it moves forward again. Okay, that is a breakdown of the eclipse. Just going to check through the chat here. Big Steph says sometimes low fire energy clears the air and focuses energy. I agree. I mean, fire and air can be complementary. I mean, you need oxygen to feed and fuel a fire. You need a spark to get something going, but the ideas, you need ideas to be able to put into action. And sometimes you need a little perspective for that fire to keep burning. You need fuel for it. Air is fuel for fire. So they can be complementary. Jennifer says, having to trust what is right for you may not be right for someone else, but be free to go your own way without harm on either side. Exactly. As long as what you desire is not harming other people, I think it's okay to pursue it. But when our own desires bring harm and pain and suffering to other people, you're in the wrong. I'm sorry. Like that's something that we have to kind of reconcile with this. It isn't an either or. We have to take in some of these considerations even when we're pursuing something that is very important to us individually. Candy Corn says this eclipse is going to be right on top of my Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Libra. Oh my goodness, Candy Corn. So you're probably going to get tested as far as your ability to see both sides of an issue potentially. And that's okay. I think you're up for it. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a stretch break here. Do me a favor, friends. Before we dive into the individual rising signs, do me a huge favor. If you are enjoying the work I'm doing here today, please like and subscribe to our channel. We go live generally once a week, either most of the time Friday afternoons, 1 or 2 p.m. Eastern time generally. Sometimes it's a Thursday, sometimes it's a Saturday, but most of the time we go live on Friday afternoons. We like to discuss the new and the full moons. We also look at the astrology for the month and just have a good discussion about all things astrological. We talk about sports, we talk about our personal lives, we talk about books that we like. It's just a nice community to hang out and hopefully to be able to support one another. So you can support the channel by just the easiest thing, just hitting that thumbs up, liking the channel so that we can, liking the video so that it gets out to more people. Subscribing to the channel really helps. It gives me feedback as to who's out there and if the work I'm doing is resonating with folks, and it helps you to know when I'm going live. And sharing it with your friends too. Word of mouth is great. If you're on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, just sharing like the announcement for the video or sharing that you enjoyed coming to the live stream is always helpful as well. If you want to make a donation in the work I'm doing here today, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com, or you can hit that little $ in the chat and buy me a super sticker today. If you're on YouTube with me, that really, really goes a long way to helping me to do this work and the research, and buy me time and materials. And there's equipment that goes into this. I have lighting and microphones, all of those things, and you're helping to support that as far as your donations. So thank you so much for those of you who are generous with your resources. But most of all, I'm just happy you're here with me today. Commenting in the chat is helpful as well. So I really love hearing from everyone. Okay, let's see. Ray is here. Says, hey, Ray, Cancer Rising here at 3 degrees with Sun in Libra. Also 3 degrees with Pluto in Libra, 8 degrees. Wow, Ray, so you're going to get... there's going to be a lot going on for you this coming eclipse. So we'll break it down when we get to Cancer Rising in a few minutes here. So stick around for that, Ray. But welcome, and I'm happy that you're here with us here today. Dawn Fisher is here. What's up, Dawn? Children leaving home is painful but necessary for growth. Sometimes you have to do what is good for you and trust that it's going to work out in the end as it should, because it's what is needed. Absolutely. I've been there. I have a college-age daughter who left home and moved out on her own, and it was very painful, and we were very bonded, especially during the pandemic times. And I think that, sometimes you need space from one another to be able to individuate, and then eventually it circles back around. You come back together, and you've changed, and your relationship needs to change. I think that's the thing. As we change as people, our relationships need to change as well. And we need to give people space to be themselves and to figure out who they are without our influence. So I know it definitely is an experience for sure. Messages says, this is wonderful. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you, Messages. That's a great message. I love this name that you have here. I love the messages that you have here. Let's see. KP, thank you so much for the super sticker, my friend. Says, thank you. These live streams are generous and comforting. Oh, thank you for your generosity, friend. Appreciate you, and appreciate seeing your face here in the chat every week, and hope everything's going well for you down in Cleveland, and hope that the Flats, is that nice place down in Cleveland, down by the river? I've spent a little bit of time down in Cleveland. That's a nice place to visit. Melissa Tarot Reading is here. Says, Diana McGrew, peace and blessings be upon you and your family. Can I consider you for a reading about your guidance angel? Says, just send me a friend request and get your reading. Oh, well, thanks, Melissa. Yeah, you can consider me, and thanks for your advertisement on my channel. That's awesome. But as a community person here, I'm happy to uplift others who are in the biz. So welcome, and hope that the work that you do is helpful for our people. Yay, yes. Okay. So let's keep going. Let's see here. Let's do the rising signs. What do you think? Everybody get a stretch break? Everybody get a drink of water? Everybody get a snack? And at the end of the day, it's cool if people want to put their services in the comments. I love supporting other people. This is something I'm trying to work on as a community member. I'm a Leo rising, so sometimes it's hard for me to, trust other people, I guess, and be a part of a community. I like to kind of do my own thing, and sometimes it's hard for me to figure out what my place is within a larger scheme. But that's something that I think for me personally, I'd like to work on more towards this eclipse, is trying to figure out how to be part of a community in a way that is, helpful and uplifting to not only my own brand or whatever I'm doing, but helping others as well. And I've gone through different phases of that. I think that sometimes when we're doing this type of work, can I be honest for a second? I know that you'll appreciate it. I've gone through times where I've tried to become more involved in the astrological community or things of that nature. And sometimes I'll get involved in relationships that sometimes will feel painful, or competitive. And then I just retreat back into my little Cancer shell and just try to go about my own business and do my own thing. And I think that that's okay every once in a while. I think if a lot of times when we have difficult trusting each other within a spiritual community or within a community, it's okay to withdraw for a period of time. But I think it's okay too to try to stick your head out like a little turtle coming back into and testing the waters once again. I think that I do think that we are stronger when we support each other. And I also believe that there are enough resources, that there are enough, there's enough attention, there's enough to go around. And if we uplift one another rather than trying to compete with one another, I think that we will build a stronger community that is supported by a stronger structure and mycelial type network. So let's keep rolling. Okay. Let's see. Let's keep rolling here. So let's talk about the rising signs. Yeah, I think that I like some of these comments. Jennifer says, so the orbs of an eclipse are wide, have Mars and Venus and Saturn at 8 and 9 degrees of different signs. Let me think about that for a second, Jennifer. So I think what you're asking is the orb of the sun and the moon touching a individual placement. I would say that the orbs of the moon are related to, the orb of the moon is like 12 to 13 degrees. I believe in Hellenistic or traditional astrology. The orb of the sun, it depends. There may some, I think that it could be within 3 degrees for a normal orb, but maybe the sun with its beams may extend out to something like 15 or something like that as well. But generally I use orbs of about 3 degrees for other planets, and you have a bigger orb of 12 to 13 degrees for the moon. Uh-oh. Big Steph says, I'm not seeing that message in the chat. Is an astrobot. That would make sense. It's just some bot advertising on my channel. That's cool. I'm trying not to assume that that's what it is. If it's a real individual, and the kindness part of me is trying to win out. But yeah, Dawn says it's nice that you're good with it, but a courtesy to ask might be nice too. Yeah, that is another feeling that could arise in a situation like this. Tracy says this is a supportive space, but other places are not totally like this. Totally relate. Cancer Sun. Yeah, I try to be as welcoming and open and things of that nature. But I'm a human being too, and like I think that yeah, mutual respect is I think the key with this. I'm not immune to challenging feelings about other human beings or creating a safe space, but I do my best to be kind to others and to give space for people to be themselves here, as long as it's not harming other people. Message says, sincerely feel that you seem like a very decent person. That makes me feel hopeful. Oh, I appreciate that, friend. I am doing my best. I am just a guy on the internet talking about astrology, but I aspire to try to be the best version of myself. I don't always succeed. And again, I've had moments in my life where I've been an asshole. I've been a total a-hole. And I just am trying to work every day to learn from those experiences and to try to be the best version of myself. And I think that's all you can do. We're all going to fall short of the glory sometimes. And as long as we're continuing to try to grow and learn from it, I think that is the best we can do. Thank you, Dawn, for the super sticker. Appreciate you, friend. Appreciate you coming each week. And I really appreciate hearing your stories and your contributions to the group. And Big Steph says, my BS detector is finally honed. Yeah, that did sort of seem like a BS comment earlier, didn't it? But like I said, I don't want to make assumptions. If it was a real person and you sincerely want to be part of our community and you want to offer me a reading personally, that's cool. But if you want to come on other people's live streams to advertise your services without communicating with them first, that's also kind of a dick move. So we're just being real with one another here. Okay, friends, let's keep going. Let's move on. Oh boy. So let's talk about Aries Rising. What do you say? Let's talk about Aries Rising. Steph, Big Steph, my Aries Rising friend, I think, right? Trying to keep it real for us. Love that. Love that, Big Steph. Appreciate all of you. This is a cool group that we have here. Let's see. So Aries Rising, let's bring you onto the stage here and start talking about what this might mean for you. Yeah, when we're doing these shows, a lot of it is live, and I'm kind of my own moderator here. So, sometimes we will have some weird, interruptions that we'll have to deal with, and trying to ascertain the spirit of them sometimes can be challenging in real time. So I just appreciate all of your patience with all of that. Again, I hope this is a community of sharing and wanting to be helpful to one another and support one another. And here's the other thing, friends, if I know you and I like what you do, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. Okay. Like we have so many artists and like other wonderful astrologers and things like that. Like we have like people who come here where I'm like, yes, go support them. Like that's what we should be doing. But one of the things I learned in Sand Talk is the first action to doing that type of thing is getting to know other people. So like establishing a relationship with someone first before you're coming into like a sacred circle like this in a sacred space and, trying to influence people. Getting to know those people first it's almost an introductory handshake, right? And that's important to respect some of those social graces, I think, is important. All right. Big Steph says, Jupiter is conjunct my Aries rising in the first. I'm one of the tallest people you'll ever meet. Awesome, Big Steph. Well, then your name rings true, my friend. And one of the funniest and most honest. So I love that about you. So Big Steph, this Aries rising horoscope is for you. Let's dive into it. What do you say? So we're going to start with Aries rising because, as we are apt to do, we like to rotate which of the rising signs we talk about first. And because the sun will be in Aries during this eclipse, we're talking about Aries rising first. So Aries rising is the first of the rising signs that will have this eclipse in an angular sign. For those of you who are familiar with the way that I've broken down the eclipse today, you've heard me talk about having an eclipse in an angular sign. And I think one of the interesting things about angular signs and having aspects and transits going on in those particular places is we tend to feel this very individually. And sorry, I got to acknowledge Julene here. I love you, Julene. My Gemini Rising friend. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Says a true class act in a semi-classless world, Spencer. Well, again, just doing my best. And thank you so much for your generosity, friend. Really appreciate you. I want to make sure that I acknowledge that in real time. And go Cardinals, right? Draft's coming up. You just traded for a backup quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. Got Desmond Ridder in there. Rondell Moore out, Desmond Ridder in. And Hollywood Brown signed with the Chiefs. So lots of changes, right? Okay, Aries Rising. Sorry about that. So Aries Rising, the sun is going to be moving through your first house, which is an empowered position for Aries Rising. This is putting a big fiery spotlight on your own personal desires. And this is going to be a potentially challenging eclipse because the moon is going to be moving through your seventh house, asking you to potentially have a perspective, understand someone else's perspective, although the moon is going to be conjoining the south node and potentially reducing your need to ask permission with that partner, maybe your need to try to make everyone happy, right? I know that that's not something we generally associate with Aries Rising. A lot of times Aries Rising is going to be like, I'm just going to be me, and you can be you, and just don't get in my way and we'll be fine, right? And that might be how you're feeling right now too. A lot of my Aries Rising clients and friends, a lot of them have gone through some significant changes in their relationships in the past months, couple years. There's been some people have gone through some divorces. Some people have gotten married. A lot of different changes, and I think that this is an eclipse where it might be time to just get clear about who and what you want. Okay, because the next eclipse that's going to be coming is going to be very powerful for a new individual start. Now, the challenge that I'm seeing with your ascendant ruler, Mars, is in the 12th house. So there may be some undermining forces. There may be some confidence challenges with Chiron moving through the first house. Mars might be asking you a lot of questions about what it all means and why you're doing what you're doing. And there may be that might be undermining your confidence. There could literally be people who are in your environment right now that are underminers, right? Like you had Venus stuck in between Mars and Saturn in your 12th house. Like your joy could have been stuck where people were trying to undo something that you really desired, and like we're blocking you on some level, right? So yeah, this could be a moment where some of those challenges with a partner are going to start, I think, alleviating or abating. Venus is going to be released from the malefic enclosure, so both your money issues, which Venus is ruling, and your partnership, there could be a partnership issue related to finances. Like sometimes if we go through a divorce, we have to figure out like things like alimony and dividing up our resources. So this could be an important chapter marker / ending point to feeling like you are connected or stuck with someone else that isn't right for you anymore, right? So that's it's both sad, but it is also liberating as well. So this could be a moment of liberation. Keep in mind too, Aries Rising, that Mercury is going to retrograde into your first house in April, and that is related to your third house and your sixth house. So there could be something where you have to reevaluate something with a health issue. You could also be reevaluating your daily habits and routines, or some relationship with like a sibling or a extended family member could be up for renegotiation. Okay. Julian says, what? Where's Marvin? Marvin Harrison? Is that what you're referring to, my friend? Sorry. Jolene and I have a running dialogue about the Arizona Cardinals. Marvin Harrison, for those of you who aren't NFL football fans, is a generational wide receiver prospect that is probably going to be drafted probably by the Cardinals if everything falls their way. But he's a great player that reminds a lot of people of Larry Fitzgerald, who's another Arizona Cardinals great. And I'd be excited to see where he goes. I hope he does go to the Cardinals. I think he'd be a great fit down there, and I would love watching him play. All right, let's move forward to Taurus Rising. Okay. And let me know, friends, if your rising sign has come up and what I'm saying is resonating, let me know in the chat, and let me know if you feel comfortable sharing some of your stories where some of these things might be playing out. That's always really helpful too, to contextualize what we're experiencing and saying, oh yeah, that really makes sense because this situation's happening as an Aries rising type of thing. I mean, it's always great to be able to ground and connect that wisdom to our shared stories and narratives. Okay, Taurus rising. Taurus rising has the sun and the moon over the 12th and 6th house axes. And this is an axis that is both a cadent house related to the first and a cadent house related to the 7th house. So when we have lunations and cadent houses, we generally are maybe not feeling the eclipse itself as specifically as someone who is a cardinal sign, but we might be feeling the energy through another person's experience, like once removed, right? So when we have major cadent transits, it's almost like we have people that we're working with, we have siblings, we have secret enemies, we have teachers. Those are themes that we see, and I'm going through like with third house siblings, 12th house secret undermining forces, ninth house teachers, sixth house, contractors we work with. So it's not necessarily like that's happening directly to us, but through the people we're relating to. So in this case, this eclipse is coming to fullness in your sixth house. There's a big solar spotlight in your 12th house. Taurus risings right now first of all, I want to just give all the Taurus risings a little bit of a hug, because Venus has been going through the malefic enclosure. So your Libra and Taurus rising friends have been getting hammered by this Venus and malefic enclosure energy. And for Taurus rising, you've probably been going through a really difficult situation with a group that you're a part of. Whether it's a friend group, whether it's a professional group, anyone that you share a sense of belief systems with. You probably also maybe even been going through some challenge trying to get some resources, maybe from like benefits from the government or something like that. 11th house is money from the government. So it could have been like maybe you were trying to get like Social Security or like disability or like some sort of support, and that was held in check for a long time. And maybe at this point, you're starting to figure out the resources and it's released from that bondage. So, and I know how painful that can be for Taurus risings, because a lot of times security is very important to Taurus rising. And when we don't have access to that, it can feel very scary. So at this point, Taurus is probably tired, is what I will say. And with the sun moving through the 12th house, with Mercury, the North Node, with Chiron, there's probably a deep hunger. Remember, we have Rahu in the 12th house right now, the North Node, for solitude, for rest, for peace, for just a break, And it may be a little bit challenging to get that if you don't ask for it. Okay? You may have all these responsibilities that you feel like you have to keep going and keeping afloat. There may be some heavy responsibilities that we could look at with the sixth house, that there's just been a lot of work and grinding, type of experiences that you're not getting a lot of credit for. And it may be in service of another person. It may be in service of, maybe you've got a needy child or someone who has a lot of special needs or something like that. There could be an aging parent in your life. There could be a circumstance where you're having to carry a lot of responsibility. And this could be a time to just say, you know what? I may have to delegate some of those responsibilities. I really just need to take some time for myself and recharge the battery. And that's going to help you in between these two eclipses to make a new start, where you could potentially have a new spiritual connection, maybe even an awakening of some sort. Like, this could be an important time for releasing old narratives that aren't serving you. The 12th house is the period before birth. So if we think about tying up all the loose ends from a previous cycle so that we can have a new start, this series of eclipses is helping to hopefully prepare you for whatever the launching that Jupiter and Uranus are asking for in your first house. The other thing to keep in mind, friends, is that Jupiter and Uranus are going to be coming together at about 21 degrees of Taurus I believe it's in April, okay, like in early April. So let's see, let me check that for sure. What's the date on that? I don't have the date right in front of me, but let's see. When is that that pesky Jupiter? That's April 20th at 21 degrees of Taurus. So big deal. Not for everybody, but particularly for Taurus, Sun, and Rising. There is a big new start coming that may even be shocking, right? That is I think more related to not just to material security. If I look at it through the lens of the decans, Taurus 3 is really about repairing something that had fallen into disrepair through maybe through doing something too quickly. So think about like atoning for an old mistake, like restructuring something, evaluating what worked and what didn't. So that this could be a really important moment of realization that could really help you fix an issue in your life that has been sticky for a long time. And because Jupiter rules both your 11th house and your 8th house, it could be related to how you share responsibility or resources with a group that you're a part of. Again, that group kind of energy is really a big theme for Taurus rising right now with that Pisces stellium. So hang in there, Taurus. Try to advocate for your own need to rest and to be able to find inner peace. I think as a Taurus moon myself, what we really desire is an inner stability that is oftentimes very much related to our external environment, or we think it is. I think that's the mistake that we make as Taurus types, is that everything in our environment has to be peaceful for us to feel peaceful. But I don't think it necessarily works that way. I think that we can find our own inner peace despite the things that are, raging around us. And it's really important for a Taurus type to be able to practice that self-care, practice that inner stability so that they can be the reliable people that a lot of folks have come to count on us to be. I think that a lot of people show up here every week because I show up every week and try to provide lunar comfort with the moon in Taurus on the midheaven. That's its job, is to try to be a stabilizing, comforting presence. Now, that requires me as a Taurus person to do the work necessary to be centered when I show up. And it's not always easy to do. Like, there are times I go through the same types of ups and downs as everyone else, and trying to get yourself ready to be that stabilizing presence, Taurus rising, I think is part of what this eclipse is going to be. And it may be through delegating some responsibilities. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go to Gemini rising. Hey, Gemini risings. How you doing, friends? Gemini risings, things have probably started to get a little better for our Gemini rising friends as Mercury has left Pisces. But that was a breath of fresh air for all of you Geminis out there. But let's take a look at Gemini rising. So we're going to be having an eclipse over your 11th and 5th house. So there is a spotlight on your group involvement of trying to become an individual within a group that you're a part of potentially. Maybe even taking on a leadership role. Maybe trying to just be yourself within the group. A desire to maybe even to stand out within the group, which is not always easy to do. Sometimes we get part of a group and, some people are squeakier wheels than others, and it can be hard to individuate. You may need to reduce your dependency on your own personal pleasures with the eclipse happening in your 5th house, with the moon being eclipsed in the 5th house. There could also be an important ending. Keep in mind, every rising sign that I'm talking about, there is potential for an important ending in the Libra area of your chart. So for Aries rising, there's an important ending and release in the 7th house. For Taurus rising, an important ending and release in your 6th house. Okay, so relationships for the 7th house, works, responsibility, health issue for the 6th. And here we see a potential ending in the 5th house for Gemini rising, related either to a creative project. Maybe there's something that you're working on that is finally coming to fruition. It could be releasing a way that you pursue pleasure that isn't healthy. I can imagine, here's just my brain going through visual storytelling. Let's say a Gemini rising is trying to individuate within a group of friends, and that they are starting to pursue sobriety, and the group of friends that they have like to go out drinking every Friday. And the Gemini rising, who likes to be with these people socially, says, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I can't go out and be around these particular folks in this way. I have to find a new way to relate to these folks in support of my own sobriety and my own best self. So that's one example. I'm not saying every Gemini rising is going through this, but this is one example of like an ending where you may have to release the need to have the approval of someone else to do what makes you happy. So you may have to find new ways to seek pleasure that aren't reliant on social acceptance. Okay. So the other thing I will say is that Venus just escaped the malefic enclosure in your 10th house. So you may have had a difficult situation in a work environment or in relationship to an authority figure. And this is going to be starting to alleviate by the time this eclipse comes around. You know, you also had Mercury hanging out in Pisces in the 10th house, so communication was probably not clear, not great, but it's starting potentially to improve, although you may be reevaluating how you are delivering your messages and whether the way that you're delivering those messages is both attracting or repelling whatever it is of your interest. Remember, Eros had both gold and lead-tipped arrows. The gold arrows ignited passion. The lead-tipped arrows pushed things away. So everybody has the ability to both attract and push away by the way that we express ourselves. So that's another thing to consider at this eclipse is the way that you're communicating, is it bringing people in or is it driving people away? Okay. Gemini rising, feeling okay? Let's keep going. So Cancer rising. Let me check in here. Okay. We've got 420 is the Jupiter Uranus conjunction. That's interesting. Jennifer, hopefully you got some good advice with Gemini rising. Big Steph's going to be celebrating 420 accordingly. Take that how you will. And then Jennifer says, yes, relating. Good. Okay. So let's go over to Cancer rising, friends. And let's break down this next angular eclipse. So Cancer rising, and sometimes I will say Cancer suns, moons, etc. Sometimes I've seen some overlaps with how this works. So it's a good idea to kind of take sometimes a look at both your rising and your sun sign through these lenses. The more traditionally inclined of you would really focus on your rising sign, but there is some sort of strange overlap with a solar consciousness here as well. So Cancer rising, the Sun, Mercury, and Chiron in the North Node are all moving through your 10th house. There is a push at this eclipse during this eclipse season to launching a new public awareness, a new public persona, a new visible part of yourself, which can feel a little bit intimidating for any type of Cancer person. There is always a risk of feeling exposed. Oftentimes, Cancer likes to do their work in the cloak of darkness, in the dewy silver light of the moon. And Aries season has squared that energy. Aries season is very yang. It's very, like Cancer is very generally aspires towards kindness and nurturing and emotional security. And a lot of that subtlety is not available during Aries transits. So there may be a need to put yourself out there in a more aggressive way than you're used to. And that may necessitate a reduction of a need for approval from either your family, from your partner, or from your parents, or a reduction of your involvement in your domestic situation. Oftentimes, Cancers will sacrifice their own needs for the needs of their family and their friends and things of that nature. And it's sometimes very difficult for a Cancer rising or sun to give the same type of care and nurturing to themselves that they so desperately desire to give to others. And this might be a time to give that to yourself. This eclipse season, this series of eclipses could be telling you. And remember what I said earlier about the little sprout pushing through the earth. Sometimes to be able to be a part of the community, to provide nurturing, to provide pollen for the bees, you have to aggressively push through the ground. You're not going to be able to feed any bees in your community if you're still stuck in your seed case underground. See what I'm saying? And I'm speaking directly to myself as well. Like I'm a Cancer sun, and this resonates with me. Like I don't like rocking the boat. I don't really like competing with others in general. I was very competitive in sports, but in business, I'm like the exact opposite. I don't like stepping on people's toes. But at the same, on the other hand, to be able to provide nurturing for people, sometimes you have to spread your wings a little bit. That you have to spread those leaves out and grow. So if you're a Cancer rising, there might be a situation where you need to grow, and you need to be a little bit more aggressive. You need to put yourself out there and maybe not care as much how other people view you or think about you, and maybe not be so obsessed with whether you're being kind or not. Like, everyone needs boundaries. And I think that one of the fine lines that Cancer rising is trying to work through is, what is your boundary? Like, how can you protect the situations that need to grow, or the safe spaces? I know as a Cancer 2 sun, that's the walled garden. So I try to, again, with the what I'm doing here every week, I try to create a safe space for people to be themselves and to grow and ask questions and to be a part of the community. But to make that work, sometimes you have to weed the garden. Sometimes when people come and upset that space and make other people feel uncomfortable, they got to go. A lot of times what you all don't see is in real time, sometimes there's folks that come in and try to disturb that equilibrium, and they get the boot quickly, And that's the type of thing that you might need to do publicly, Cancer rising, is you may have to weed the garden a little bit so that you can have a safe space to grow professionally. You may have to say, this is my line. This is who I am. This is what I need, right? And I relate to that as a Cancer sun right now. I think that, Jennifer says, let's see, Jennifer's Cancer, right? Sun, yeah, right? Late degree Gemini, ascendant. Oh, late degree Gemini. Yes, always listen to the sun too. Big Steph says, I love my many Cancer friends, but they are very idealistic about other people, so painful to watch the disillusioned face. Yeah. I have that phase, Big Steph. I've gone through many of those things, and that's why I was talking about earlier about, going through phases of dipping my own toe in like a community, like the astrological community, like the music community, like any community. Is I'm often go in assuming the best about every single person that I'm relating to. And when some of them confirm that faith and other people disappoint you, and other people reveal themselves to not care about you the same way that you try to care about them. And that's super painful. And yeah, Big Stuff, that can be a really tough experience for a Cancer type person, rising, sun, moon, etc. And oftentimes you have to kind of retreat and lick your wounds a little bit. And I know for me, I've retreated from a lot of the astrological community on some level, just because I went through some of those experiences, and some of them were my own fault. I take full responsibility for my own role in some of those things, through my own, managing my own emotions and experiences. But sometimes we just have to kind of go do and be ourselves, whether people like it or not, and whether we feel like we're stepping on toes or whatever. Oftentimes we're not. Oftentimes, other people don't care what we do or think as much as we think that they do. And I think that that's something to keep in mind for all these Cancer risings out there, is oftentimes people are just caught up in their own business. And it's okay for you to be yourself and put yourself out there and to ask for what you need. Devin says, Cancer rising might need to expand the walled garden for new life to flourish. Yep. I agree with that, Devin. I agree with that. I'm feeling that myself. I feel like, I don't know, I'm feeling a little stagnant. If I'm honest, being honest with you, my friends here, I'm feeling like a little stuck. Maybe it's the Venus and the malefic enclosure, but I need to make some new starts and figure out some new ways of doing business and new offerings, new teachings. And maybe it's just the end of winter, but I think spring will ignite some new passions. And yeah, we sometimes have to get outside of our comfort zone, and that can be really difficult to do sometimes, but it can pay dividends. Jennifer says, always feel more aggressive and active in spring. Yeah, and sometimes we may act out of character. Like, this is the thing too. Like, so just defending my future self. If you see me acting a little bit more aggressive about something in the near future, you'll know why. Maybe I'm trying to expand my whatever I'm doing, and I hope it won't take you by surprise if I'm blunt every once in a while. Big Steph says, they blame themselves first, but it's always misplaced. I was writing as you blamed yourself. I mean, calling it like it is. Big Steph, it's I think there is a self-reflective quality to Cancer, where I think we often do try to self-examine before casting aspersions. At least I do. And I don't think that that's a bad quality necessarily. I think that it can be taken too far, and that it can be debilitatingly, it can be paralyzing. But I think that a little bit of self-reflection, I think it's okay. And I think that that's kept me closer to my ethical ideal than if I just was just acting first and asking questions later. And I know, Big Steph, I'm talking to an Aries Rising, so I just everyone's got their own way, and I think that there's beauty in all of it. So you be you and I'll be me. Messages says, I never knew that about Cancerians. Good for others to know, to be sensitive to this. Yeah, I think that just understanding all of the different astrological archetypes, it's really important. It's just it's empathy. I think learning astrology can give you some empathy, and it really can allow you to just know yourself, but also to let people be the best version of themselves too. If you ask someone to do something that is not really in alignment with their own personal motivations, it can be difficult to get them on board with a cooperative venture. Tracy's here. Tracy Gorman says, hello, lovelies. I'll rewatch. I am so late. Oh, that's fine. You're right on time. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, Tracy. Nice to see you here, friend. All right, Cancer Rising. You feeling all right? I mean, here's the other thing about Cancer Rising. The moon is the ruler of your ascendant. So when we have a lunar eclipse, that means that the moon is being swallowed up by that demon or dragon. So there could be some disorientating experiences for Cancer Rising, especially when it comes to your roots and your foundation. What I will say is this too shall pass. Like, do the best that you can to manage your own feelings, your own emotions. Here's my best advice I could give to you, and then we'll move on to Leo. I think that understanding what your feelings are and what someone else's feelings are is super important. Those lines can get really blurred with any water sign, but Cancer, and I think Cancer and Pisces in particular, not to say that Scorpio doesn't do that, but Scorpio is a little bit more skeptical sometimes about those merging energies. Whereas Cancer and Pisces Pisces is the one that doesn't have very good boundaries at all. Cancer has the gruff exterior, but we're still feeling, it's permeable. We're still feeling everything that everyone else is feeling. So differentiating between your own feelings and someone else's may really be helpful during this eclipse period to understand what choices are in front of you. All right. Devin says, the latest Chris Brennan episode about unshaming the zodiac is really good to understand the basic archetypes. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. there's some good work that happens over there. And I think that unshaming any sign is a great, I'm in support of that message. I think that oftentimes we take on some of the negative parts of pop culture, you know, I don't know, cliches, I guess you could say. Not to say that some of them don't ring true every once in a while, but I think there's a difference between shaming signs and understanding ourselves and our strengths and our weaknesses. But yes, I will check that out. Big Steph says, a dear friend who has a Cancer, she understands why someone is behaving badly but can't draw boundaries when they treat her badly. Good heart, soft shell crab. Yep. Yeah, it's tough. I think that speaking from my own experience, when you get hurt as a Cancerian person, you tend to, at least my own way of dealing with it is to retreat and to become unreachable. If I'm really upset, I can't even speak. And this was true when I was a young person too. Like, if you'll know a Cancer person is mad, really mad at you, when they just can't even get a word out of their mouth. Because what they're doing is they're retreating into their shell and protecting themselves and becoming completely unreachable. They're hiding. They're saying, look, I'm not going to deal with this. You've hurt my feelings. I need to go away into my own space. And I don't think that they're necessarily saying you're dead to me, although that is another kind of Cancerian type of thing, is you won't hear from them for a while and you may feel like you're dead to them, but it's more about self-preservation from their end. It's not necessarily like a Scorpionic thing where it's potentially like, I'm going to crush and destroy you and I will kill you. It's more like, you're just not going to hurt me anymore and I'm going to become completely unreachable. So if you experience that with your Cancerian friend, sometimes you just have to give them a little bit of space. What I will also say though too, unfortunately, is if you don't try to coax them out of that shell, they may never come back. Like that's the other thing, is they may feel so distant and emotionally hurt that getting them to come back into your sphere of trust or their sphere of trust again, it's really tough. And it is possible, but it might take a while. It may take some coaxing on your end. And I'm not defending our non-Cancerians that aren't willing to do that. Sometimes you just have to cut ties, especially if we're being big pouty babies. Okay. Let's see. So true. The whole reason I got serious about astrology was to understand the people I love better, not to mention myself. It's humbling. Yes, absolutely, KP. That is one of the greatest gifts, I think. Big Steph says, I'm a Scorpio sun. Sometimes people are dead to me. Yeah, see? I mean, Scorpio sun's willing to just completely say, nope, you're done. That's it. You're never going to hurt me again. That's it. Cancer, I think Cancer can be convinced, but you're going to have to really I don't know, massage their sensitive, childlike, emotional ego. I think I'm speaking from experience. Uranus ascending says, Sun has Cancer ascendant and Scorpio sun. When he shares feelings, it's a huge deal. Yeah, that is tough for, that water sign combination to feel that vulnerability, right? Because there is the self protection of Scorpio that is very much feeling survival instincts, and the Cancerian, hard exterior that is protecting very sensitive emotions. So yeah, when we do share our feelings and put ourselves out there, I'm not saying that you should give us a cookie or a treat every time we do, but realize that it does take a lot of courage for us to put ourselves out there. This is one thing I've realized, and I'll move on in a second because it doesn't have to be just the Cancer show, but as a Cancer sun with the moon on the midheaven, that puts me in situations where my feelings become public quite a bit, whether I like it or not. And it does feel I do feel exposed a lot. And I try to make the best of it. But there is a feeling of man, sometimes I just wish I could not have to be, judged. I guess that's the main feeling of it. And it's put me in situations where I've just not engaged with situations where I would risk judgment. And something to consider if you're a Cancer type person is sometimes the The fear we're feeling is risking other people's judgment. And this might be part of this eclipse season, is just not caring about that anymore and saying, you know what? You're never going to make everyone happy. No matter what you do, even if what you're doing has the highest possible motivations behind it, you're never going to please everyone. Candy Corn says, yes, Scorpio Sun on the 12th. I can't even look at a person who hurt me. Yeah, right? Feel you on that. I've been there. As a Cancer Sun, I relate. Big Steph says, it takes a lot, and I'm done, and I mean it. Yep. Yeah. The thing about Scorpio Suns, they're actually really loyal. Like, some of my best friends have been Scorpio Suns, and I know that they would literally like take a bullet for me. But if you make them mad and you really make them mad, you're just not gonna be friends anymore, and it's super painful. But you're right. That's the reality. KP1231 says, LOL, Steph, my chart ruler is Jupiter and Scorpio on the 12th. I feel you. Yes, we've got all the Scorpios coming out from under their rocks, acknowledging that. Oh, boy. Jennifer says, yes, I couldn't talk when I was younger because the feelings were so intense and couldn't find the words, so I would do artistic things. Yep. I was a very shy kid. I was not super verbal, especially when I was upset. There were times when I was really excited about something that I was just a motor mouth, but I have Venus and Gemini, so there's a little bit of a mitigating factor there. All right, friends. Well, thank you for indulging this Cancer Sun in a philosophical reflection about Cancer and Cancer Rising. Let's move on to Leo. So Leo Rising, you have this full moon lunar eclipse over the 3rd and 9th house axes. And there is probably... Now this is really interesting to me, Leos. As a Leo rising native myself, I'm looking forward to... I look forward to Aries season. I know that as a Cancer Sun, it's a little challenging, but as a Leo, wherever the sun is at and the dignity that the sun has, you might start to feel a little bit better. Like, Leo rising during Pisces season has been going through the sun moving through the 8th house, which is a place that does not witness the ascendant. We might not feel at our best. We might feel a little bit like we want to hide. But once that sun moves into Aries, like, it moves into its exaltation. And then Leo's like, woohoo, here I am. You know, like, here I am. This is what I believe, baby. Right? Like, this is the, kind of it's always kind of a coming out party for Leo risings when spring hits. And, because literally the sun comes back out in the northern hemisphere, you start to get that, that vitamin D back in your system. You start to feel like living again when it's warm and you can get charged up by the sun. So keep that in mind. Yeah, Uranus ascending says Leo has entered the building. Exactly. And that's how we enter buildings. Like, I can speak from experience. I don't like going out very much anymore, but when I do go out, I know how to enter a room. I always felt like, all right, I'm here. Like, let's do this. Let's be friends, So there is that energy with Leo rising. I remember this experience when I went to the United Astrology Conference in 2018. I didn't know anybody in the astrological community, but I received a scholarship from AFAN, the Astrological Network. What is it? Federation for Astrological Networking, something like that, which I'm very grateful for. And I didn't know anybody, and I walked into that conference, which is like the big, literally like Astrology Olympics, the biggest conference in the world. And I was just like, I'm going to be friends with all these people. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're famous or not famous. I'm going to be friends with whoever and I'm going to validate everyone that I come in contact with. Think about that for a second. That is part of a Leo type of energy. Whereas Aries is saying, I'm going to be me and you can be you and I don't care. You do you, just let me be me. Leo is saying, I am going to validate you. Please validate me. Like, that's really the agreement that Leo's trying to make, right? Like, there's this, we can be hungry for attention and validation, but we can be the greatest cheerleaders ever. I think this is something that people don't always understand about Leos, is that we would love to lift other ships. As long as we're feeling respected and acknowledged, we are great at singing the praises of everyone else. Leo is more like, I'm great, and so are you. Whereas Aries is like, I'm great, and yeah, okay, whatever. You can do whatever you want. Okay, so think about that for a minute. Isn't that funny? And yes, there are shy Leos. Like we've got some people who are like, oh, I'm Leo and I'm shy. Like totally. And there may be other factors in your chart that support that. I'm a Leo rising with the sun in the 12th house, for crying out loud. There are times when I just don't want to be visible at all. I just want to retreat into my own little sanctuary. So yeah, we got our Leos checking in. Tracy says, I'm a Leo sun and daughter is a Leo rising. Yes, exactly. Nice. You got all that Leo energy. She says, oh yes, it is, right? It's Leo season. It's coming. So that Aries sun really just, kind of ignites us, KP says, don't I know it stuff? I'm also a Pisces, Mars, and Neptune on the ascendant. People love to project and confuse kindness with weakness. Absolutely. Yeah, don't ever take people's kindness for weakness. I mean, that's a real mistake. Sometimes the strongest people in your life are the ones that are trying to be kind. It's not easy to be kind. I think that's something to keep in mind. Uranus ascending says, yes, I love validating others. Yeah, me too. I love validating people. People who deserve validation, right? I try to uplift people that maybe, it's hard to do that if you feel like you're being disrespected, but as long as people are nice to you, like validating others and uplifting them is Leo's favorite thing. When you run into a problem with Leo is if people are treating you without respect, you're going to just be, here's the look, and I'll stop the share for just a second to show you this look so you can understand this look. This is the look you'll get. See if you recognize this, Leo. Who are you speaking to? It must not be me because I'm the king or the queen and you treat me as such, right? That's the look that you get if people are not being respectful. It's like, wait a minute, is there someone else that you're talking to? Because I'm right here and I'm great and you should probably validate my existence. And I say that tongue in cheek, okay? But there is that pride that does kick in every once in a while, right? That where, we can get that kind of like, I don't know, there's a little bit of a haughtiness that we can fall prey to sometimes. And we have to watch that. But yes, validating others is a great Leo way of being. Big Steph says, I will radiate my royal sun all over you. Yes, exactly. Yeah, because think of it. Life, the sun is it gives vitality. Like when the sunbeams fall upon the flowers, they grow. When the sun falls upon your face, you feel good as long as it's like within reason. You can get too much sun. If a Leo's personality is too big, it can be like, ugh, I'm getting sunburn, right? But if you get just the right amount of sun, you feel great afterwards. You get an endorphin rush. A Leo, a good, balanced Leo can make you feel incredible. Some of my best friends are Leos, and whenever I'm around them, I just leave the building with them feeling like, wow, I just love being around them. They make me feel great. I have a really great, love to give. Devin says, Leo can be as much a spotlight on others as they illuminate themselves. Absolutely. We try to do that here. You'll see this in action here. I try to, just by being able to bring the community into the conversation and highlight your comments is my version of that, of trying to spotlight and illuminate others. And here's an example of this. Devin, you bring all sorts of great thoughts to our community and all sorts of great reflections. And I love shining the spotlight on your ideas here as well. So think about that when you're trying to think about Leo and Aquarius axes and things like that. I think that, Leo is a really fascinating sign that all the signs really get taken for granted in weird ways and get shined strange light on them in modern astrology. I think that we should be really careful about the cliches and following the cliches. Some of them are true for a reason, but yeah, Julene says Leo moon. I concur. Yeah, Jolene's another great example of this, being able to share that light, share that vitality, uplift others through our positivity and our ability to cheer other people on. Yes, we've got, let's see, Tracy says Leo sun, Libra rising, Gemini moon, full of hot air. There you go. Well, I don't know about that. I think maybe you're bringing beauty and grace through your ability to shine your light. Devin says Leo can also bring us a renewed sense of play. Absolutely. I'll tell you, I'm trying to embrace play lately. I'm really been, for those of you who've been following the show, I've gotten really interested in tabletop board games lately and just doing a lot of research on gaming and the nature of play and how important it is just for our own mental health and for our sense of relating to one another and the ritualization of play, which I include sports within. I've always felt almost like I sit at the feet of the cathedral of sports, and I find the sporting ritual as a religious experience oftentimes. And I'm reading a lot of literature that is validating that, and it's very cool. So yes, just taking time out to play every once in a while and be in the moment is really important. And I think games help us to do that, to be in the moment, in the present. And Leo is very good at helping us stay present. Okay. KP says, I have a coworker with a Leo moon. He must be acknowledged or he gets salty. I mean, that's, like I said, there are positive and negative sides to every single sign. The negative part of Leo energy, if we don't feel validated or unappreciated, we can be real sons of bitches. I mean, that's myself included. But that's why the self-awareness of astrology can really help, right? Right? Okay. So I love all these comments here. We've got the Leos are all stepping up. Right? They're laughing about this. We wouldn't be here without our dear soul. It makes all life possible. Absolutely. Tracy says, I give everything when respected, but don't demand anything. Yes, right? This is something to keep in mind. If you have Leo rising sun friends, Leo rising friends, Leo moon friends, if you just give them basic respect and acknowledgement, they will literally do anything for you. I mean, this is a cliche that I think is not unfounded. Just compliment them, and man, we will be loyal to a fault. And it's really that simple. You know, when I see clients that come in that have Leo partners, I'm like, have you complimented them lately? Like, and they're like, well, no, they're not doing this, and this, and this. Well, it's probably because you make them feel like shit because you're criticizing them all the time. If you just say something nice, I swear to God, they will do anything for you. You know? And that's not true in every single situation. You got dark-sided people everywhere, but really, that's the easiest way to get a Leo on board is a sincere compliment and acknowledging what they do for you in your life or just who they are and what that means to you. Jennifer says, my daughter-in-law is a Leo rising with an Aries sun. Ooh, that's very fortunate. I've got a nice friend, Vivi Henriette, check her out, or the Zodiac, who is a Leo rising with an Aries sun. And she embodies a lot of these qualities too. She's a great cheerleader for others as well. Tracy says, you are so awesome, Spencer. Oh, thank you. See, Tracy's showering the Leo cheerleading from one Leo sun to one Leo rising. See, there you go, buttering me up. It works. Thank you, Tracy. Big Steph says it's a battle, but with rules, so human and beautiful. Sport, that is. Yes, and that's another thing that is really becoming apparent is like the games, for example, are it's ritualized because of the rules. The rules are important. The rules give us structure so that we can bring order to chaos. That's something that is actually fun for human beings, is bringing order to chaos. So yeah. Okay. Let's see. We've got some really nice comments here. Yes, the Astrology Podcast recent interview with LaRue. I'll have to check that out too. Jennifer says, have the North Node in Leo working towards the Leo shining. Yeah, North Node in Leo here too, friend. It's a journey, isn't it? Laura says, Britton Laurie's interview on the Astrology Podcast on unshaming the 12 signs is awesome. Well, there's a second encouragement for us to go check that out. So we'll have to check that out. I will admit, I have been consuming less astrology content lately. Sometimes what I will do is, and I probably should do more of this, but to be able to do the live streams, I want to try to be able to bring a unique perspective without absorbing too much of someone else's perspective first before I do that. And oftentimes if I'm listening to a number of astrology podcasts, all I'm doing is parroting someone else's viewpoint. And I have to be careful of that. This is kind of a Cancer thing. And to be honest with you, you absorb someone's light and then you're kind of spitting it out and you don't know where it came from and it just is unearthed in some way. And on some level, that's okay. That's how culture works. So you have to kind of be careful about those things too. But I always, when I get multiple recommendations like this, I think that I try to follow those threads. I'll say what I've been listening to a lot lately. I've just been listening to a lot of sports podcasts about it's free agency. Green Bay Packers just signed a stud safety and a new running back, and I'm just lost in football lately. And maybe I'll do some more football stuff on the show if people are into it. I've been thinking about talking more about sports astrology on the channel. If people are supportive of that, I'm seriously considering maybe doing little segments here and there. Oh yes, we've got a rugby. I forget you're in France, right, Steph? Yeah. Okay. Oh, Hubs is a Lions fan. Oh no, no. They've been making moves. Okay, sorry. I digress. Thank you for indulging this Leo rising in an existential view of Leos all over the world. So Leo rising, the condition of the sun is improving quite a bit. You're probably going to be coming out of your hole and shining your light and saying, hey, doesn't it feel great to be alive again? And then we have the moon coming to fullness in the third house, conjoining the south node. So this could be a new, an awareness of a new sort of belief system that you're wanting to share with the world, a new sense of purpose and meaning that is much more individually focused. It is more about what do you want to pursue. You may need to release the need for approval. Like this is something I tell Leo people also. Despite our need for validation, the true journey of the Leo archetype, I think that I've learned from people like Liz Green, is through being able to unify your inner authentic self with your external expression. And sometimes people aren't going to like your expression, and that's okay. You're not going to be able to please everyone. And you will get closer to a unified expression, okay, through just being yourself and releasing some of the need for approval. Now, I'm going to say this again as a mitigating factor. That isn't a license to be an asshole. Like this is something that we Leos need to remember is when we get fixated, fixed sign, on saying, this is who I am and take it or leave it and fuck you if you don't like it. I'm here to say that that doesn't work as well as here I am and it's cool if you like it. It's cool if you don't. And I respect you and I would love for you to shine your light and I'm going to shine mine. And if our lights aren't necessarily complementary, then okay, we'll see you later. You can go do you and I'll do me, rather than like trying to will someone, strong arm them into liking you, which we have been known to do at various times. Like sometimes it's kind of like, oh man, they don't like me. Why not? What can I do to make you like me? And this is the thing. Sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes your most authentic self is just completely out of alignment with someone else's idea of what their authenticity is. And that's okay. And the sooner that we realize this as Leo risings, as Leo suns, as Leo moons, the easier our life is going to be. The less hills that we will have to die on when we just allow ourselves to be ourselves and stop caring quite as much whether people like us or not. Okay? I'm just talking to all you Leos out there. Yeah, Uranus ascending is talking about these displaced Michiganders. Yes, well, Uranus ascending, are you from Michigan? Because you know you live in Chicago area. I don't know, you're a Bears fan? Because we'll have to talk about that a little bit. Bears. It's okay. I have friends that are Bears fans and friends that are Vikings fans and friends that are, other teams fans. And we can have gentle ribbing of one another. See, it's just like I love the Packers. You love who you love. And so it goes. There has been a weird pattern of like, when the Packers release a player and that player is disgruntled that they didn't give an aging player a lot of money, they try to stick it to the Packers by go signing with either the Vikings or the Bears, which has recently happened this week with a fan favorite. I'm sad to say, a really important player to Packers fans, Aaron Jones, got released and then immediately signed with the Minnesota Vikings. And I will say, I looked at his chart. He has Venus in Scorpio and Jupiter in Scorpio, and they're all being squared by the Aquarius planets. So it's funny to see his heel turn happen, even though he's a Sagittarius sun. It's interesting to see the Scorpio placements being like, all right, you're not going to appreciate me. He has Mars in Leo. He's like, you're not going to appreciate me? Screw you. I'm going to go to your biggest rival. Uranus is, he says, no assholery allowed. Absolutely. Julian says, yes, great idea. More sports astrology. I love that. Astrology can be fun. Yes, I'm trying to bring more fun into astrology. I think that the world is full of things that are not fun right now, and we have to learn how to have some fun every once in a while. I'm just, I know it's kind of a niche thing, so maybe it will be useful and interesting for some people, and other people won't want to engage with that content. But here's the thing. Everything isn't for everyone. This is what I'm trying to tell all my Leo friends here. Sometimes if you do what you love, you'll find your audience. If you don't, then that's okay. There's all sorts of ways to be. Uranus Ascending says, I grew up in the U.S. and always went to the football games, but rugby stole my heart. That's interesting that you've converted to rugby. Oh, yes. Uranus Ascending is from Battle Creek. So are you both Lions fans? Lions looking pretty good this year and last year. I sort of adopted them as a second team after the Packers were eliminated. It's just kind of fun to see the Lions, who haven't been very good for many, many years, finally turning around, and long-suffering Michiganders have something to cheer about. So, final thoughts, Leo Rising. There may be something that you're passionate about that you want to start learning about or teaching. Ninth house, there could be some journey, pilgrimage that you might need to take potentially. And you may need to reduce your dependence on others for helping you make that decision, whatever that is. Maybe there's a new course of study that you want to engage with. Maybe there's a new class that you want to become a teacher of, or a new philosophical worldview that you want to take into account and incorporate into your life. And you may need to reduce the dependency on other people's opinions. Sometimes there's leadership qualities associated with Leo. So sometimes we need to lead the way. And sometimes people want to keep other people small. And it's okay sometimes to shine your light. It doesn't mean you have to be overbearing. It just means that you're okay. It's okay for you to be yourself. And it's not always, you're not always going to get everybody on board, and that's okay too. All right. I love these sports things coming in. Uranus Ascending, grew up in a baseball family, but cricket has supplanted that for me. It's so complex and beautiful. Man, Big Step, you're just really going all in on the European sports here. I think that if I was in that community, I probably would gain a new appreciation, especially if it was a social communal thing. But man, I tell you, even just living in Michigan and growing up on the border of Wisconsin and Illinois, I just can't shake my loyalty to Wisconsin sports. My grandparents are from Milwaukee, and I just spent all of my weekends and summers with my grandparents talking about the Packers and the Brewers and the Bucks, and it was just really a nice memory for me that has just I imprinted on it. So it's really hard for me to move off of that. Laura says, I love your sports astrology shows, and I'm not even into sports. Never felt so informed before a Super Bowl game than last. Nice. Oh, than the last year of your show. Oh, good. Yeah, I miss doing the sports astrology stuff. We took a little break from that with the Nightlight folks because they have some other projects that they're working on, but maybe we'll start doing some more of that here. I love talking about sports, and I spend a lot of my time doing research on it too. So maybe that's something that we can learn through, a lens that we can learn through. Honestly, I've been considering even just making a Packers themed Astro segment that's regular, but I know that's very specific. You're a study says, not a sports fan, but if Hubs is happy, I'm happy. Big Steph says, lived here for 20 years and just really enjoying great sporting event. Yeah, I love a great sporting event. To me, it's a religious experience. Messages says, in general, is there something we can keep in mind when you talk about our opposite signs in with regard to the eclipse, if that makes sense? That's a good question. Let's see. Which opposing sign, like opposite your rising sign? Or I think that oftentimes full moons ask us to hold dualities, and like a normal Aries sun full moon with the Libra full moon, we would need to take other people's needs into account to be able to move forward with our own individual desires. Now, what makes this eclipse version of this full moon really interesting is that the North Node is increasing our personal desires and making them almost insatiable, and reducing the lunar ability to be able to feel our way into what other people's needs are. So I just think what it does is it's supercharging our own individual desires, preparing us for the new moon solar eclipse, which is even more focused on individual desires. So I think that there is a cautionary tale within that. Like, try not to let your own personal desires ruin your relationships. Because I think that if we're not conscious when we go through these eclipses, we can do a lot of damage to our relationships, while at the same time realizing that there are certain relationships that just need to end, or certain parts of them that need to end. Now, a relationship doesn't have to end completely for it to change and for the dynamics to shift. So that might be something to consider with the opposite signs. And I hope that answers your question, messages. Okay. Leo Rising, are you feeling informed? One last thing I'll say, Leo Rising, is that the malefic enclosure of Venus was heading through your 8th house, and you had a big stack up in Pisces in your 8th house. So there may have been some kind of shared resource that was stuck for a while that hopefully will be liberated after the conjunction with Saturn. And that could be related to your career. It could be related to your daily habits and routines, or with your neighbors or community members. So keep in mind that you may be releasing some of those challenges. Like, for example, my partner and I were recently able to pay off a debt that we've been carrying for a long time. So as Venus started moving through my 8th house, we were able to release that debt that we had both been carrying for a number of years. So that's just one example of the derived houses, the second from the 7th, which is the money that you share with a partner. Okay, so maybe there's other people that are experiencing that as well. The true last thing I'll say, Leo Rising, you also are going to have a pretty powerful Jupiter-Uranus conjunction happening in your 10th house in late April. So start to get prepared during Aries season for a much bigger expansion during Taurus season. Okay, remember the 9th house is cadent. It is a house that is before, like, finding meaning before you put something out into the public. Okay, so this could be a time to really explore what you believe in and what is your authentic belief system, so that when Taurus season rolls around, you'll be able to expand through your heart, through what is really meaningful to you. All right, let's keep going. What I'm going to do now is we're heading to about the 2.5 hour mark. I'm just going to take a break here for a second. I'm going to encourage you all to take a stretch, to get a snack, to get a drink of water. We're going to come back in a second with Virgo Rising. And do me a huge favor, while I'm stretching out here, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to make a donation to the work I'm doing here, you can buy something called a super chat or a super sticker. Really does help me with all the facets of producing this weekly live stream. We have some people that were very generous today, and really appreciate all of you. appreciate all these comments too. That's another great way just to participate. Is your engagement with the show is really important, and just it really helps make the show. So I appreciate all of you there. All right, get all your joints moving, get your shoulders stretched out, and we'll head into Virgo Rising here and see if we can turn the corner with this. All right. Just check me out over at spencermichaud.com if you want to sign up for a reading. If you like what we're doing here today, if you like the vibe, I put a lot of time and attention into individual readings, take a lot of notes. I try to hold space and try to offer practical solutions to some of the challenges by looking through your chart and working together with you to find some peace and find some stability within your life. This is something that I really like to do when I work with clients. Is not only do I look at the chart and talk about the aspects of what you're going through, whether it's through your lifelong narratives in your natal chart or through transits, but also working together to say, oh, what can we do about this? Where are we at right now? We try to get clear first as to what our actual situation is. And it's nice to have a partner to reflect on that with. Sometimes we often get lost in an illusion of what our reality is, and having someone to be able to reflect back our reality and be a sounding board is really, really helpful. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I never tell you what you should or shouldn't do. What I try to do as an astrologer is unearth that answer and that realization within you, and to bring out your own inner knowing about what is right for you. I mean, that to me is the best way to be a guide, a teacher, an astrologer, confidant, is to help people see their life clearly so that they can make a choice that's in alignment with their truth. So reach out at spencermichaud.com if you are interested in booking this season, especially if you need help during the eclipses. You can also follow me over at Spencer Michaud on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. I don't know, very active, but that's where I'm most active. And you can also follow me on Threads. All right. So let's see here. You guys are funny. Let's see. We've got some Leo Rising comments, and then Big Steph's coming in, says, we never see your belly button anymore, Spencer. Sorry, Big Steph. Maybe I'm just wearing shirts that fit me. That's funny. You never see my belly button anymore. You know why? Because I've got this beautiful new camera that follows me wherever I go. So it's something called Center Stage for it's like an Apple kind of a camera feature that fixates on my face and follows me. So that's the main reason. It's funny. You all are funny. Okay. All right, we've got some really nice comments coming in. Sorry, I composed myself here. Well, you're making me blush, friend. All right, let's go Virgo Rising. What do you say? All right, Virgo Rising. Enough about us Leos. We talked Leo enough here. We've had our time in the spotlight. You Virgos have been waiting so patiently, as you often do. Let's see. So, Virgo Rising. The sun is going to be moving through your 8th house. The moon is moving through the 2nd house. This eclipse is bringing a potential ending to your own needing permission of others to spend money, potentially, right? And to budget. There could be budgeting questions that are coming up where you might have. This is something else that we all should be aware of. There may be an awareness of an injustice wherever the moon is heading, and that may lead to us saying, you know what? So if I'm taking that and I'm saying Virgo Rising, maybe there's something coming to light about how you spend your money, and maybe you need to make some changes, and whereas maybe you need to take more responsibility for your own budgeting or something of that nature, or maybe there's something where you don't necessarily need to ask permission to support yourself in the way that you see fit. Mercury is hanging out in the third decan of Aries, which oftentimes you might be trying to convince someone towards your viewpoint around your shared resources. Maybe this is Virgo rising, like asking permission to buy something, like to buy a course or a book. I'm just thinking about things Virgo risings might like, a tool, right? Like a new something that will help them do more work, probably. And you may be trying to convince a partner or sweet talk a partner into allowing you to get this thing. At the end of the day, sometimes we just have to kind of make our choices around how we allocate resources. This could also be something to consider, that the choices that you're making right now with how you differentiate between your resources and someone else's will potentially be up for review when Mercury stations retrograde through the 8th house. So this could also be related to like an inheritance issue, a tax issue. I would suggest for all of you out there, try to get your taxes done before Mercury stations retrograde April 1st, because you might be less inclined to be as accurate as you could be if you wait until Mercury is already stationing retrograde. You may have to redo them. So this is another thing to keep in mind, especially with Virgo rising with the 8th house. 8th house is often related to tax challenges. Virgo rising also sees Venus, escaping from the beams or escaping from the malefic enclosure of Venus and Saturn in the 7th house. So there might have been like a stalemate regarding how you allocate resources with a partner. And there may be a difference of opinion or belief system around that because Venus rules both your 9th house and your 2nd house. Here's just a mundane example. There could have been an argument with Virgo rising with your partner around spending on an expensive vacation. Like, let's say we take the 9th house of a long distance journey, or like on your higher education or going back to school. Like that could be something like that. Like you want to go get a master's degree or a certificate, and a partner is like, well, we can't afford that, or we can't. And then you kind of have to say, well, I want to do this. This is really important to me. I really want to keep improving myself. This is an important thing for me. And finally, Venus shows you what is or isn't possible as it combines with Saturn and moves out of that malefic enclosure. So keep in mind also, Virgo rising, Jupiter and Uranus are coming together in your 9th house. This could be a really important time for either taking a journey that brings new meaning to your life or for furthering your education. Like 9th house is also associated with learning, like in higher institutions of learning, like college degrees, things of that nature. You could also be teaching something, and maybe you need to invest in the resources so that you can teach at your best. Oftentimes the 9th house is also related to not only learning, but teaching something that we know. Okay, Virgo rising, sorry to make it so short. We got to kind of keep rolling here. We the Leos and Cancers today got us sidetracked with their emotions and their solar lights. Sorry for that, friends. We'll keep going, but I kept it short and sweet and efficient for you, Virgo. All right, let's keep going. Libra rising. First we got a nice comment here. It says, my brother is a Virgo rising. He and partner are going through this very conundrum, needing to keep aspirations realistic about buying a house. Oh, perfect, KP. Thank you for sharing that story. That's a perfect example of having difficult conversations with a partner over spending money, right? I mean, over like kind of trying to figure out what is within the budget, what isn't. I'm sure that situation is probably going to come to a head during eclipse season, KP. So I guess try to be as supportive of a sister as you can, but maybe you don't want to get involved in that argument also, Fred. Oh, they'll figure it out. Okay. Libra rising. Libra rising. You've been so patient. Libra rising has been going through it. This is another angular eclipse with the sun moving through the 7th house and the moon coming to fullness in the 1st house. There is this malefic enclosure is alleviated finally in your 6th house. Okay. Some Libra rising thoughts. First of all, Libra rising. You've probably been going through some stuff with Venus and malefic enclosure in your 6th house. Two ways I could see this playing out. 2 or 3. A health challenge, because the Venus is the ruler of your 1st house. Could be a really difficult injury or illness that has just been, you've really felt stuck between a rock and a hard place. It could be also through shared resources with another person, because Venus rules your 8th house, shared resources. I would also say that there's a potential for someone who is providing a service for you, because the 6th house often is related to people we contract work out with. And maybe there's been a real challenge finding a contractor for a job and coming to an agreement or a contract with them, and that's been super frustrating. Keep in mind that situation is going to start to alleviate as Venus conjoins with Saturn around this eclipse. There is a lot of focus when we move into Aries season on your 7th house of partners. There is probably a situation where maybe you've been asking permission in a relationship, and this might be the time to reduce some of that. A Libra rising oftentimes is always wanting to make sure that things are in equilibrium, that things are fair, that they're taking other people's needs into account. And this is a unique opportunity to maybe assert some of your own individual power, your own individual needs and desires. And here's what I will say, Libra rising, and Libra folks in general. When you are asserting your needs and desires, oftentimes what feels like you being a complete a-hole to you subjectively is actually just you advocating for your half of the equation. And it's legitimately fair. You're being probably way nicer than almost anybody else in that would be advocating for their own needs. And sometimes for the relationship to be healthy, you need to take care of yourself as well. And I think that that's the key. If you want your relationships to continue to run smoothly, you have to be authentic in asking for what you need within the relationship, if that makes sense. So this is an important time for advocating for what you need. There may be an awareness of an imbalance and an injustice, and that could be frustrating, but we could start eliminating some of that. Now, the other factor to keep in mind is we really haven't been talking about this enough. We should really talk about what planet or what houses both the sun and the moon are hosting. So if we look at Libra rising, the moon is hosting the 10th house. So we could also bring in the equation of some work issues, some public focused issues. It doesn't have to just be a work or career. It could be anything that you're doing publicly that's getting eclipsed right now, where there's something ending with a job situation or with a public persona type of situation. And if we do the same exercise with the sun is ruling your 11th house. So there could be an increased need to become individuated in relationship to a group that you're a part of. Okay, so that's another thing that you should have, trying to teach how to read a chart as we go through these. Instead of just giving you saying, this is what's going to happen. I do a little bit of that because I want to prepare you for possibilities. But astrology is a wave of possibilities, and there are going to be different individual points of experience that will snap into existence, sort of like quantum physics, right? Matter exists in waves of possibilities, and individual little points will snap into existence because of our attention that is focused on it. So keep in mind, always look for the house that the planet rules for topics that are going to be brought into it. The action itself is going to be from the planets in the topical houses. So you will see solar action in the 7th house. You will see lunar action in the 1st house. You will see all that Venus, Mars, Saturn stuff in the 6th house. But they will be influencing other topics in your life, the places that they host. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Libra Rising, and for everyone here. We've got some nice comments coming in. Tracy says, Tracy, I think you're Libra Rising, right? Yeah, KP says, just in regards to the Virgo Rising brother, says he's having a challenging time, but yes, staying out of it. Good call. That's always a good way to do it. Tracy says, it all fits. 2 failed back surgeries, living in my best friend's basement, awaiting my SSI case. Oh my goodness. So Tracy, yeah, you have Venus in malefic enclosure in your 6th house, an injury, 6th house. Venus is the ruler of your 8th house, income from others, which oftentimes, we have income. Also, income from the government is 11th house, so that could be the sun as well. Okay. The other thing I will say is that you may really start to get what you need when Jupiter conjoins Uranus in your 8th house of money of others, right? So that's coming on April the 20th. So hang in there, Tracy, and hopefully you're healing up well. And also, when Venus moves out of that malefic enclosure, there's a good possibility that you start feeling better, or the situation starts to improve one way or the other. Big Steph says it feels like our planetary sense of justice is having a difficult time as well. Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a lot of justice system stuff not completely functioning well. Like we've got a lot of court cases that are active right now, especially in America, with previous leadership that was out of alignment with their integrity, to put it mildly, and a lot of like things being held up there. And maybe there's important things that will happen in regards to legal cases. Yes, that's a good point for sure. Tracy says, at least I'm with my bestie of 44 years and our hubby is cool. They're both Gemini Rising. Well, that's good. I'm glad you have a good support system. Tracy says, wow, this is like a really cool therapy sesh, Spencer. Okay, thank you, Tracy. I'm glad that it's helping you feel better. That's part of my goal here, is to bring some stability to some of these wandering stars, right? Just to be able to have a plan. Like, we're not always going to be able to control events. I don't think astrology should be used to control events. I think astrology should be a reflection of trying to learn how to accept what is inevitable, but also to be able to be our best self in relationship to the events that are fated. And that in itself can change the course of events. So hopefully by contextualizing all this for you, it helps us to make the best choices that we can in the moment, to be able to interact with the stellar energies. Yeah, I'm glad this is a safe space, or that you have a safe space, Tracy. Big Steph says as well. I love seeing people support each other here, just acknowledging all that. Devin says, as a Libra Rising, I'm curious about how my 9th through 11th gets activated this eclipse. Well, I think that first of all, the 9th house, Devin, is ruled by Mercury in your Libra Rising ascendant. And keep in mind that Mercury is going to be retrograding at the beginning of Aries. So there might be a belief system that you might have to review. There might be a conversation about what, with a partner, maybe even particular, about what your beliefs are. There could be something where you are considering a new educational experience, or a new teaching experience, or a new travel experience. And you may be discussing this, and maybe a partner may be trying to convince you, or you may be trying to convince them over to your point of view. And that will have to be up for review. That's the 9th house part of it, right? 10th house, Moon is getting eclipsed. So there may be an ending. There may be an injustice within your work, or within your public sphere, that you're becoming aware of, that will require you to move under your own power. An ending, perhaps. And then with the 11th house ruled by the sun, it's also encouraging you to maybe strike out on your own within the groups that you're a part of, and and say, well, this is what I am and this is what I'm not. And Devin, you do a good job of shining a spotlight on some of the injustices going on in the world. And I think that can be really helpful to helping people to understand what their role might be within that. So maybe there's something in regards to that too. I think also, as we've been talking about too, having a healthy balance between our bringing in a sense of play versus a sense of seriousness in our life. That could be something that could be up for balance as well with Libra Rising. I know that it's really sometimes hard to find joy when all sorts of crappy things are happening around the world, and I think that there is some validity in saying if all of us can't be safe or free, then none of us should be. At the same time, we have to try to find joy in the small places where it lives, and I think that could be part of this eclipse too. Is how do we find joy in our life, especially when we're feeling overwhelmed by some of the social challenges? And I know that a lot of times Libra or any air sign can get overwhelmed with some of the social challenges, especially if there's injustices playing out. So I do hope that there is a balance that comes in our social relationships, and that fairness and peace start to become more prevalent. I will also offer, I know this isn't an excuse, and this doesn't invalidate anybody's viewpoint about how terrible things are in various situations, but I will, just from a mental health perspective, keep in mind that we're in a time period where we can experience crisis 24/7, where we are plugged in to every single crisis in every single community all the time. And this is really the first time in history that that's been the case. And it's really difficult for our nervous systems. Generally in the past, when we weren't plugged in like this, we would have a crisis every once in a while, we'd have to deal with it, and then there would be periods of peace. And now we have difficulty with that. And I feel really bad for my Libra Rising friends and Libra friends, because I can only imagine just the level of care that they have for those in suffering and wanting to create peace, and seeing all of these tragedies playing out day after day after day, and how overwhelming and how exhausting that is. So I think a lot of us feel that way. We don't have to be a Libra Rising to feel that way. But what I will say is that it's good work to continue fighting for peace and for justice. It's also good work to take care of your own self and your own needs, so that you can be a better fighter and warrior and peacemaker when you're called upon, from whatever that means. So it's okay to give some of that energy to yourself, Libras, is what I'm saying, especially during this eclipse season. And really, the long and the short of it is knowing what we can change and what we can't. And it's hard to know. And sometimes it changes. In one moment, you may not be able to change something, and in another moment, that's your moment. It's go time. So just stay fluid, I think, is the key. Tracy, thank you so much for the super sticker, my friend. Appreciate you being here today. Wishing you healing, and hope that your situation improves soon, and that the resources that you need come through. Yeah, Tracy, Jennifer sending you love too. Big Steph says, "Isn't it past his jail time?" Yeah. Oh boy, that was a classic quote, and yes, it is. So that's as much as I'll say on that, but it is absolutely way past that time, and I'm as nervous as a lot of the rest of you about the future. Thank you all. Tracy says, love this chat. Yes, best wishes to Tracy, and all Librans messages says, getting some love here. Big Steph says, the advent of 24-hour rolling news started the rot. Yeah, it's okay to unplug every once in a while. I mean, I know that we don't want to stick our head under the sand. This is the balance and the fine line that we have to have. We need to be aware of injustices so that we can stand up for people who need us, that can't for themselves. We also need to know how to, when we're exhausted and when we need to refill the well and just touch some grass. Like, I think that's really what I would recommend. If you're feeling overwhelmed with the social things, just Go out and ground yourself, touch some grass, appreciate a flower, find gratitude for the things in your life that are worth fighting for. See what I mean? That are worth protecting. And that's going to mean different things to different people. I know for me, like, one thing that gets my justice, bones riled up is the earth, nature, and advocating for plants and animals that don't have a voice. And everybody has their own things that they feel really riled up about. And to me, like, when I see, like, people polluting and people abusing ecosystems, I get really upset. But at the same time, that is stemming from deep love for my natural environment, deep love for the trees that I share my environment with, for the animals and the butterflies and the insects and the plants that I owe my life to. See what I'm saying? And it's the same thing for those that are getting riled up about social issues. It's the deep love for humanity that they have, where that sense of injustice and anger comes from. So keep that in mind. What I will say is, don't be afraid to share the love too. That it's always, put that energy that you want to see out in the world. Call out the injustices, but also put the love out into the world. That to me is the most balanced way to do that. Tracy says, thank you for giving so much of your time and of yourself. Thank you, Tracy. I do my best. We'll have to kind of keep rolling here so I can go get some dinner pretty soon. But I love these interactions with all of you, and I'm happy to do it. Big Steph says they had to create news to fill the hours, and then the internet took over from there. Yeah, it's an interesting time, friends. Interesting time. All right, let's keep going. Scorpio Rising, because I'm running out of steam here. How many risings we have left? Oh my goodness, we still have. I'm gonna have to kind of speed race through some of these, and I apologize for that, friends. I'll do my best, but I gotta get out of here in probably about 30 minutes. Okay. Scorpio Rising. Scorpio Rising has the Sun, Aries stack up in the 6th house, and the Moon becoming full in the 12th. Mars, the ruling planet for Aries Rising, is hanging out with the Pisces stellium. Okay. Oops. In the 5th house. I've been real curious about my Scorpio Rising friends recently, especially related to whether they are dealing with habits that once brought them pleasure but may no longer be serving them. I think a lot of the time, Scorpio in general is a lot about identifying things that they need to release. And when we have Saturn, especially Saturn moving through the 5th house, and Venus in malefic enclosure in the 5th house, I think there are two main topics that come up with this. Hellenistic astrologers associate this with pleasure because it is the joy of Venus. We also associate it with our children. So Scorpio Rising could have been going through some real difficult challenges in regards to children or a creative project. Venus rules their 7th house and their 12th house, so there could be really an enemy, like an enemy of a child or an enemy of a creative project, or maybe even a partner that there's been a lot of difficult conversations with lately. I think that there's relief coming, though. There's relief coming with the Venus being released from malefic enclosure in the 5th house, and then, being open to be its most exalted self in the 5th, releasing that which is no longer serving us. I think that this eclipse over the 6th and the 12th house is really asking you, how can you become more independent in your work? How can you become independent within your health? How can you start releasing maybe some of the self-sabotaging patterns that have probably held you back on some level? Scorpio isn't an easy rising sign to have. I've had a lot of interaction with Scorpio types and type friends and risings, suns, etc. It's a tough road to hoe sometimes, depending on where Mars is in your chart. But there is a lot of grief and loss and composting energy around Scorpio. And sometimes the energy of releasing can be some of the most difficult things, but it can also be the most liberating. So this eclipse could be helping to liberate you from a self-destructive habit in particular. It could be that, and that the release of that could lead to a completely new start with your health, especially with the eclipse that's coming afterwards. This, let's say you start to release yourself from a habit that wasn't good for you, and you were overindulging in something that, again, was pleasurable at one point, but has become an addiction or something of that nature. When you finally move on from that, it can lead to a whole new existence, a whole new lease on life. And the beauty of that Scorpio rising is through the act of letting go, you allow yourself to be reborn. You have that phoenix energy that's associated with Scorpio. By allowing the old form to die, you are giving birth to something new. So I always encourage Scorpio folks to focus not only on the loss, don't ignore the loss, ritualize the loss, acknowledge it, mourn it, grieve it, cry, feel those feelings, but then move forward and start focusing on that new birth, that rebirth, that letting go is going to liberate you towards. One of the higher symbols of Scorpio is the eagle. And I'll tell you, friends, this is really fascinating. I saw an eagle outside my back window the other day. Like, I live in Michigan. They do live around here. But you don't see them fly across your backyard very often. And it was being chased by a crow. I caught a glimpse of it. It was a very large brown bird with a very distinctive bright white tail. I just don't know if it could be anything else. It was not a vulture. It wasn't a hawk. It didn't have the markings of a hawk. It had to be an eagle. And I had just pulled that symbol the day previous, so it felt like there was some synchronicity with it. But eagle teaches us to rise above those circumstances and to transcend some of our mundane existences. And I think that with this Scorpio energy in this eclipse, I think that oftentimes Scorpio's secret enemy is relationships, right? And that 12th house cusp. So this might be a time to reduce some of that pain associated with trying to please others, trying to feel what other people are feeling all the time, and merging emotional energy and start to get more in your own space. I think a lot of the times, like when Scorpio folks get involved in like addiction, a lot of it is through a partner and through energy exchanges with someone who may feel good at first, but then the exchange becomes toxic. So that could be another part of this, is recognizing what your own feelings are, what your own desires are, and what the desires of a friend or a partner are. And sometimes you may have to release that friendship or that partnership to take care of yourself. But you will rise again. And I wish you all luck out there, Scorpio risings, with this eclipse season that's coming. Okay. Big Steph says, my youngest is a Scorpio sun, moon, and rising, and more, and I can't remember. She's a handful, but she's a genius artist. Yeah, well, maybe this is for Scorpio sun, moon, and rising. My goodness. That is a lot of Scorpio. Well, that's empowering for her with having the sun in the first house for sure. The moon isn't necessarily the happiest in that position, but having the moon in the first house definitely gives it agency. And depending on where her Jupiter is, maybe the Jupiter is in a good spot, expressing that creativity of the fifth house. But don't be surprised if there's skulls in her art, or if it's kind of dark. I'm sure that there's probably some of the maybe Nightmare Before Christmas type of vibes to it. Yeah, Jennifer says, heard eagle was sighted in Livonia. Yeah, it was probably, there's eagles around here. There was, like I said, there's an eagle in my backyard in Ypsilanti. I know what I saw. It was an eagle. So it's interesting to get that confirmation. Okay, let's move forward. Let's go to Sag Rising. I wonder where's our Sag Risings today? We were missing some of our Sag Risings Usually they're very, very vocal in the chat, which I love their enthusiasm. So Sagittarius rising, we have a full moon in the 11th house, full moon lunar eclipse in the 11th house. The sun is going to be exalted in your 5th house. So this could be, there could be a real focus on your own creativity, your own, again, some of the similar themes we were talking about with Scorpio around how you seek pleasure in life. But there could also be sort of an ending around a group. You know, there could be maybe to be able to create your own creative process, you need to kind of do your own thing and not really care if the group approves of it or not. Yeah, we do have our Sag risings are checking in. Yeah, there they all are. Like, oh, nice. Okay. So Sag risings, and our good friend, okay, Stephen isn't here today. I don't know where Stephen is today, but Stephen's working on a book, right? And I'm sure that this is probably like let's use that as an example. Maybe there is a lot of hesitation around the creative process for you Sag risings, where you're trying to check in with everyone and need permission to get started or something of that nature. Yeah, Laura's here too. All right, checking in, Sag rising. Okay. For all of you Sag risings, if you're starting a creative process, you may have been waffling or vacillating around it. Potentially there could have been some challenge with a group, okay, especially because Venus has been in malefic enclosure in your 4th house. Maybe there's a problem with a family member or your house or something like that that's given you challenges. Venus is the ruler of your 11th house and your 6th house. So there could be just something where the work has stalled out because there's, I don't know, maybe a lot of the times Sag risings, this is kind of a secret signification of Sag risings, they want to, the approval of the group because they have Libra on that cusp. They want to, they use their social graces within the group, and they're always kind of trying to work within and ask for permission from friends often. Well, this might be the time where it's just time to stand on your own 2 feet with your own creative expression. Venus is going to get liberated from that malefic enclosure shortly, next Thursday. You are, as a Sag rising, going to experience the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in your 6th house on April the 20th. So that's a positive new start, potentially for a health issue or for a contract situation where you're employing somebody or with work that you've been grinding away at. Again, I know a lot of astrologers have been talking about this is a great time for abundance, unexpected abundance with Jupiter and Uranus coming together in Taurus. But I would say through the study of my the decans, I really think that this is more of a remedying a situation that had fallen into disrepair, and maybe an unexpected, beautiful solution to fixing something. Okay, so like for Sag rising, maybe this is fixing a health issue. Maybe it's fixing a work issue where you were trying to figure out how to work in the best way possible. Okay, and that's coming for you. But there is a new moon solar eclipse happening in your 5th house with an exalted sun. Great time to start preparing for your own creative expression or a brand new start for your kids. Okay, this is something where this is the other thing I could see with this. I've talked to a lot of Sag rising folks a lot of times about they have real strong opinions about their kids and how they're educated, and because of the experiential nature of Sag rising. Sagittarius loves to learn through doing and experiencing things, not necessarily through rules and books and things like that, although your mileage may vary. Oftentimes when Sag risings have kids that are part of a oppressive educational system, they butt heads with it because they believe in experiencing the knowledge rather than doing things that don't have meaning. So there could be a situation also with Sag rising, like maybe you're having butting heads with a educational system and you're starting a different type of process for your child or something of that nature. This is just another take on the 5th house, 11th house axes. Rather than if you don't have children in school, this could be more about how you seek pleasure or how you express yourself creatively without needing the approval of the community or the group, etc. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Sag Rising. Let's keep going. I love that you're all here today. I think Sag Risings outnumber all the other risings, or at least they're the most vocal in this group oftentimes, which I love. I love my Sag Risings. So Capricorn Rising. Hopefully that was helpful for you, Sagittarius. So Cap Rising, here we go. We are getting to our final rising sign that is angular for the eclipse. Okay. And this is happening in your 4th house and your 10th house. So this is a big one for domestic issues versus public job issues. Okay. I'm going to show a comment from KP here. My partner and I are trying to move forward with the future, but one of his kids is having domestic issues. Lots of sacrificing over the years for his family. Okay, see? So astrology works, friends. I mean, I love hearing these stories and these confirmations of the universal archetypes and seeing them play out in your lives. So again, I wish you luck with that, KP. And it's always a delicate balance trying to figure out how to deal with a romantic relationship and with kids, especially if you have a blended family. I've been there. I've been tried to work through issues with co-parents and trying to manage my own relationship while dealing with a co-parent. It's just those situations can be really complex, and I wish you luck. And I guess compassion is really important, especially not only for the situation and for the other people who've been involved, but compassion for yourself. And sometimes there's no easy answer to those things. Okay, Cap Rising. Capricorn Rising has the Aries stack up in the 4th house. So a spotlight being placed on your home, your family, your roots, your parents, with the Sun conjoining the North Node, and Mercury and Chiron there could be a painful situation with at home or with a parent or with a family member. You could be trying to convince somebody of something with Mercury in the 3rd decan of Aries, maybe towards your point of view, but there may be challenges around feeling confidence in yourself. Like I've seen some issues with Capricorn Risings recently with having difficult discussions with ailing parents, and a lot of it is feeling guilt or shame around the relationship, and mostly through, here's really the thing, like through wanting to be helpful and wanting to be the Capricorn responsible self. So I think Capricorn Risings always want to be helpful. They always want to be the strong, stable presence for people. And it's super commendable. I really love the Cap Risings in my life and have a lot of respect for their ability to do the hard, heavy lifting of life that nobody else wants to do. And it doesn't get enough credit. You Cap Risings oftentimes are the glue that holds everything together. And there might be a situation right now where there's a lot of tension between your professional life and your domestic life, and there's feeling a lot of pressure. And I think that this is also something where, there's been a daily habit or routine that's been stuck. Like maybe something with your job has felt really stuck with Venus in the malefic enclosure. I know that oftentimes Capricorns really, they feel a lot of pain when there's a difficult situation, especially with their work. And the good news is that Venus is about to be released from that malefic enclosure. And you might start feeling some joy again because Venus rules your 5th house. I also encourage you Cap Risings to play a little bit. This is something I've been working with my Cap Rising partner. I've been playing, like I said, I've been playing a lot of board games lately and encouraging her to join me and just kind of do something just for fun. My Capricorn daughter sent, posted a meme recently where it said, if I'm not making money, growing, or like improving, I'm busy. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a Capricorn thing to say. But at the same time, the essence of play is doing something so that you aren't, for just the sheer joy of it. You might not benefit from it. You might not make money from it. You might not gain status from it. And it's so important to do that. It's so important to engage with that, because oftentimes the burdens that we carry are alleviated by that type of experience. Not every single event in your life has to be to further your journey up the mountain. Sometimes when you're climbing a mountain, the best thing that you can do is take a look out at the scenery and appreciate everything below you or everything out ahead of you, and just say, wow, and just have your breath taken away by that view. And to be able to just sit on a rocky ledge and just dangle your feet off the edge of it and just appreciate the beautiful evergreen trees and the beautiful lake in the distance, and just breathe that clear mountain air, and to rest, and to recover, because you got a further climb to go. Even if you've reached the top, you've got to come down the other side of the mountain eventually. And taking the time to appreciate the view, taking the time to rest on a ledge and take a time out, it's gonna help you complete the journey, and play is a part of that. So I'm encouraging my Cap Rising people to take time out to play, to take time out to rest, to understand that you've been the good son, you've been the good daughter, you've done everything in your power to be a responsible person for everybody in your life, and you deserve a time out every once in a while, and you deserve the joy that other people seem to experience easier. And I think that there's a brand new start that's coming to you in a domestic situation, maybe a new home, maybe a new way of relating to family, maybe a new independence in your family, maybe the ending of a public persona, so that you can start doing what is truly important to you rather than what you feel is expected of you. That's important, because oftentimes Capricorn is bound to the social pressures and expectations of what they should be doing rather than what they want to do. And this is, again, that should be commended as well. Oftentimes doing the Saturnian person does the difficult work that no one else wants to do, and that says, I got to do this, or it's never going to get done, or nothing's going to happen, and those people are the glue that keep us together. So hang in there, Cap Rising. Saturn is moving through your third house, showing you it's helping you feel. Venus just conjoined with Saturn in your third house, so helping you to feel what is possible versus what is in your vision. And sometimes with Saturn going through Pisces too, the difference between what you imagine is your idealistic self and the lived reality can be really painful. The gap between those two things can be really painful, and it can lead to feelings like depression and things like that. And I think what I'll end with this Cap Rising is that I think sometimes what you need to hear is that you are valued, and that what you are doing is important, and it's okay for you to play a little bit. We're still going to respect you, and we're still going to, if we ever lost anything, like if we lost you, it would be a huge loss. Do you know what I'm saying? So for you Cap Risings out there, take some time to smell the flowers, appreciate the view on the way up the mountain, take some time to play, and then take some time to do some things that are important to you rather than what you might be feeling socially pressure to perform. Okay. Let's see here. Taria says, I think eclipse season brings an end to a group thing. I'm leaving it. Love the creative boost that might be coming. Taria is a Sag rising, so talking about the eclipse coming in the 11th house. Big Steph says, I hope they all get past it and you can move on. It must be difficult. Yes, definitely. All right, let's talk about Aquarius rising. We got 2 more here, friends, and then we're going to do our I-ching and our animal. And I'm really appreciative of everyone who stuck with us through this marathon session. We still have what looks like 40 people joining us live, which is exciting, and just really appreciate all of you. Do me a huge favor, just please like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're lurking in the background, just do me a favor and like the video, and that's a great way to support the channel. All right, Team Aquarius says messages. All right, here we go. It's funny that we don't have your name. We just have a very random word as your screen name. There's no personal identity in it, as well as for our Aquarius rising or Capricorn rising. I don't know. Thank you. It says beautiful Capricorn reading. All right. Okay, Aquarius rising. Let's see what we've got. So Aquarius rising, we've got the full moon in the 9th house, full moon lunar eclipse in the 9th house. The Aries stack up. Yeah. Big Steph says you need a snack. Get your blood sugar up. I do. What I need to do is eat some dinner. But that's good advice. So before I dive into Aquarius rising, sorry, what I have here are some white mulberries, and I'll try not to chew too loudly. Just give me a second. Thanks to all my Astro moms out there. Appreciate you. Okay. Blood sugar restored. We're going to finish strong here. Big Steph says, I love it when someone takes my excellent advice. All right. Deep breath. Aquarius rising. Full moon in the 9th house. Aries stack up in the 3rd house. The ruler of your ascendant in the 2nd house. Venus in malefic enclosure recently released in your 2nd house, which also rules the 9th and also rules the 4th. So Aquarius rising. Yes, mulberries to the rescue, says KP1231. Love mulberries. We have some trees in our neighborhood that we collect from, but these are Foods Alive, Better Foods Company, USD organic white mulberries. Super tasty. Okay, so Aquarius rising, this is going to be a shift of your beliefs. And some of those beliefs are going to shape the way that you view your relationships, the way that you view your daily habits and routines. There's probably been a lot of changes recently, especially in related to your ability to, let's see. There's been some changes that have necessitated you getting real about how you are going to support yourself moving forward. Saturn's moving through your 2nd house. There's probably some fear about supporting yourself and about going out and changing your budget and maybe finding work or something of that nature. But I think that Venus getting released from malefic enclosure is going to start to help. Like, money could have been a kind of a problem during the Venus malefic enclosure. I think that now that it's released during eclipse season, the family challenges, which Venus is related to the 4th house, that may have felt really claustrophobic, and the desire maybe to move with freedom and find meaning related to the 9th house. going to start to alleviate. You know, like the pain that you might be feeling right now is temporary, and there could be some alleviation of that moving forward. You might be starting to feel a sense of independence, especially related to extended family members, siblings, etc., cousins, things of that nature, neighbors, and you may have to start caring less about what they think and start acting under your own power so that you can create the healthy routines that you need to be able to support yourself through the transitions that you're going through, especially with Pluto now moving through your first house. Pluto is creating some changes in identity, probably through different situations changing. There's going to be some big changes in your home environment with Jupiter coming together with Uranus, but probably related to fixing something that has fallen into disrepair, whether it's the house itself or the state of the situation with a family, or recovering from an illness or from some changes within your family structure. And that's going to be happening through April. But you have a big eclipse in your third house coming on the 8th of April. So hang in there. Recognize that there are certain things that are possible within your budget, within getting what you need, and there are some realities that you're going to have to accept. There may have to be a shift in your belief system to be able to support yourself, right? There may be compromises that you have to make around that. But if you follow your heart, if you follow what truly makes you happy and what brings you into alignment with the greater good, which oftentimes is important for Aquarius risings, is how can you be of service to the greater community? That will lead you to the right situation. And I think that with both malefics in the second house, there might be a challenging financial situation right now, but it's temporary. Okay, Mars is going to move out of Pisces eventually. Saturn's going to be there for a little bit, but without having both malefics there, you might be able to incorporate some of the lessons that you've learned during this period of time into creating new structures that will help support your ideals out in the community. Okay? So that's Aquarius rising. Devin says, Cap rising, put something fun to do on your to-do list. Yes, exactly. I'm trying to do that this weekend. Messages says, yes. It says, spot on. Bullseye, you're good. I am moving and changing jobs in order to help elderly parents. Well, there you go, right? So challenging financial situation related to a difficult elderly family situation. I have another wonderful Aquarius rising friend who's had a real big change in their family situation, and it's leading to a lot of questions about their work situation. So yeah, it is going around, and I know how difficult it can be. I've dealt with elderly parents. It's not easy. Like we're kind of in a situation like that right now. We have an elderly parent that we're working through, trying to figure out what to do with. Well, not what to do with, but how to relate to that situation. It's not easy. It's middle age is a tough time in life. Your kids are growing up and moving out, and your parents are getting older, and there's a lot of responsibilities. And I just messages. I wish you luck, and you'll get through this. Like just be as present as you can for your parents. Also, here's the other thing I'll say. It's important to take a time out every once in a while and just take care of yourself. I know when elderly parents and people that we care about get sick and we're taking on the role of caretakers, it's easy to feel like we're not doing enough, that we have to the sacrifices that we need to make, especially when we care about those folks and they've done all these wonderful things for us. And at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you're pacing yourself, because being a caretaker for anyone can be really exhausting. And so pacing yourself and giving yourself the energy that you need. This is part of the third house, is daily habits and routines. So how can you, as an Aquarius rising messages, how can you take the daily routines that you need to support your energy moving forward so that you can be a positive influence and be able to take on the responsibilities that will inevitably come in that situation. So it's really about practicing good self-care. And it'll be great for your mental health. It'll be great for your physical health. Try not to get too lost in the idealized version of it. Try to understand what is practical and what isn't within the situation. And just love them. Like that's my advice for someone who recently lost a parent in the last couple years. Even if they're really sick and they're not doing everything that you want them to do, and they're just not the same people. Sometimes when their parents get older, they have trouble communicating, or they're going through changes. Just love them for who they are in the moment, and instead of who we thought they were when we were younger. Just meeting them where they're at is really important. It's easy to get frustrated because sometimes when they're feeling bad, they can get real cantankerous and stuff too. Like, because oftentimes they're just in pain, but just loving them where they're at is my advice for that. Hang in there, friend. Okay, Aquarius Rising. I hope that that's helpful for you. Sending some love your way. Let's finish this one off with Pisces Rising. And Pisces Rising, thank you for your patience. You got to go first last time, but now it's quote-unquote Aries season, as we, at least in relationship to I tried to do this one a little bit earlier. The timing got all kind of off. As the lunations move, there's never like a perfect time to do a sort of analysis. But I wanted to give people time to absorb this before the eclipse happens and get ready. So Pisces Rising has a full moon lunar eclipse in the 8th house with the Aries stack up in the 2nd house. Pisces Rising is also going through Venus coming off of that malefic enclosure in the 1st house. Venus was related to the 8th house of shared resources and the 3rd house of daily habits, routines, siblings. Intuitive knowledge is another thing that the 3rd house represents, like wisdom that arises from your own intuition versus from an orthodox system. So there could have been some real challenges around, your extended family, about resources. It could have been a really difficult situation, especially like when you have Saturn and Mars in your 1st house. There's both a need to step up with responsibilities, and there's also some challenges that may be there's chronic conditions and there's acute conditions that aren't necessarily your fault. Okay. And not to say that Saturn conditions are necessarily our fault, but oftentimes Saturn will bring us an awareness of problems that have been festering over a long period of time due to our inattention to it. Whereas Mars brings acute problems that are more brought to us by the twists and turns of fate. And I don't mean to, I'm not saying that like if you have an acute Saturn problem that you should feel like, shame for that. Like I think it's just more that Saturn accumulates those things over time. So this could be something where you are really trying to make a new start with your own financial situation, where you might want to strike out independently from someone else. You may have to reduce your dependence on someone else, Pisces Rising. You may have to stop asking permission to spend your own money or whatever it is. There could be an inequality with how you support someone else, and you finally have to kind of say, nope, I can't do that anymore. I need this for me because I've given beyond the point that I'm comfortable with. And this is good medicine for Pisces Risings, because oftentimes they will sacrifice all of their own needs for someone else because their boundaries aren't super solid. And it's not you're not a failure if you don't have good boundaries as a Pisces. Oftentimes those lack of boundaries comes from a deep, deep compassion and love for other people. But at the end of the day, if you want to be able to help people, you have to be able to help yourself. This is a theme that I've been repeating over and over again, is that if you want that little sprout to grow into a full plant that can that can feed all of those bees, and that can feed and become seeds for the next generation of plants, you have to be able to push through the surface. You have to be able to protect that vulnerable seedling. You have to have some kind of defense mechanism as a seedling so that you don't just get eaten right away and not be able to grow into your full self. And oftentimes this is a tough lesson for Pisces Rising. And messages says great advice. Thank you. Yeah. Hang in there, friend. I know I've been there, and it's a tough spot to be in. Big Steph says both my parents have passed. So weird being the elder now. I hope to dig a hole in the woods and stumble out when it's my time. I don't want to burden my girls, Yes and no. I mean, your kids care for you. And I think it is important to be able to set up the smoothest transition for our children, if we have them, so that we don't, put undue burden on them. But at the same time, it's okay to have a community, and it's okay to need help sometimes. But yes, it is important to make plans now and not wait until we're incapable of doing so. I do think it's important to have end-of-life plans for not just for our own benefit, for the people that we're going to be leaving behind. All right, Pisces Rising. The last thing I'll say is that this beautiful Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is going to be happening in your third house. And that's going to be happening at the end of April 20th, 420. So this is really an opportunity to alleviate some mistakes of the past, maybe even in a shocking way. In your chart, Jupiter is responsible for your first house and your 10th house. So this could be really fixing something related, maybe even to your career, to the way you present publicly, to a choice that you've made personally that's related to your own character, your own body. And this could be a time to trust your own inner wisdom to be able to repair either one of those types of situations. Okay? So that, my friends, is what I have for you for the rising signs. Thank you so much for all of your comments, for all of your patience. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to finish up with a hexagram and an I-ching. We've got some comments coming in. Big Steph says, possibly my Aries Rising speaking there, Spencer. Wanting to be independent, not wanting to burden others. But again, like I said, even the Aries stage is a precursor to relationship, right? You have to be able to punch through the surface. But again, you're still part of community. You're still part of an ecosystem. You're still part of interconnectedness. And it's really important for everyone to remember that, not just our Aries friends. Jennifer says, Aries Rising cousin is having a second child at 45 years old on April 1st. Oh my gosh. So that's some big changes, right? Probably some children will change your financial situation for sure. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. KP says, thank you, Spencer. Phew, yes, we've gone on a journey. Thank you, friends. So, message says, that was thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you so much for your hard work. Yeah, I appreciate it. I love being of service. So thank you, friends, for being here today. I will finish up with an I-ching and an animal to help guide you through this time. Before I do that, please do me a huge favor. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you want and have the means to make a material donation, hit the little $ in the chat and do a super chat or a super sticker. Or if you want to contribute after the fact, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. Really do appreciate everyone who's helped donate today and everyone who has in the past. I know not everyone can do it every week, but I really do appreciate it, and I do notice, and it really does help me do this work. So let's talk about our I-ching. And our I-ching that we have here is number 38, which feels very apropos. Hexagram 38 is a hexagram that translates to opposition. It also translates to estrangement, misunderstanding, differing points of view, polarity, diversity, creative tension, finding commonality within difference. Does that sound like Libra to you? It does to me. It sounds like our ability to find consensus and harmony is under some stress. We've been in between a rock and a hard place with this Venus malefic enclosure. We've had difficulty finding the right balance, and we may not necessarily be able to find an exact 50-50 win-win solution at this eclipse. And that's frustrating. We may fundamentally have a differing point of view to someone where we're probably going to have to reduce our dependence on that type of relationship, on asking permission, and we will get through it. So when we have situations like this, the I-ching really tries to tell us to maybe pare down. Like they talk about the judgment. It says opposition. In small matters, there is good fortune. It says opposition and estrangement has entered the situation. Misunderstandings have arisen, and so people mistrust and doubt each other. For this reason, they are not cooperating and cannot make any progress. In these circumstances, it is important to proceed slowly and carefully. Mistrust has to be dissipated gradually in small steps. Hence, the text says that good fortune comes from small things. So that to me is a really important piece of advice. If you've gotten to a point of a stalemate, you're not going to undo like the damage or whatever it is overnight. And you may have to pare down the relationship. You may have to reduce the interaction. You may have to reduce your dependence on being able to move under your own power only in relationship to someone else's approval. You may have to keep your own counsel. This is part of the thing that might happen in this particular circumstance. Again, there will be a transition period between this eclipse and the next one that is very much about independent movement and action. So keep that in mind. It doesn't mean you're a bad person if you can't make everyone happy. It just means that, hey, we might not see eye to eye on this, like sometimes you have to say, let bygones be bygones. The one thing I will offer is just because someone believes something different than you does not necessarily mean that they are wrong and you are right. And it doesn't mean that if they believe something than you, that you're wrong and they're right. It just means that you have a different subjective viewpoint on the situation and on reality. And that's okay. And I think that the world would be a lot better place if we just accepted that sometimes we live in slightly different worldviews. Now, again, there's a big asterisk and caveat to that. It's okay as long as the way that your worldview is not causing harm to the other party or the other person's experience. So, again, this isn't about winning and losing. This is about how can you be true to yourself while also doing no harm. And that's the question. And there's not always an easy answer to that. And that's what takes reflection. That's what takes small steps. That's what takes time to embrace. There isn't always a win-win situation or a win-lose situation. There are shades of gray with all of this. And accepting that there is some ambiguity around it is really important too. And recognizing that even if you do win this one, the Wheel of Fortune keeps on spinning. And you may be sowing the seeds of your own undoing later. And vice versa. Maybe if you're helping to create a situation now that is successful, it may not work well in the future. And that's just change. And that's okay too. So live into the answer. Try not to feel like you have to have a solution right away either. Sometimes when we are in eclipse season, I got news for you. We're not always in charge. Sometimes God or divine or the universe, whatever you want to call it, has a different plan. And the wheels are turning behind the scenes. There are forces at work that are mysterious that we do not completely understand. And oftentimes we just need to have time pass to unravel situations. So that is the I-ching. Now, the animal I got for you all is interesting to me. I got the whale. So here is a humpback whale. Whales, I feel like this is a nod to the Pisces stack up in that chart, especially Venus, the ruler of the moon. Because we have an exalted Venus hosting the moon, learning that compassion is important and that I am me and you are we and we are all together and I am the Eggman, cuckoo, cuckoo, right? So uh, I think whale encourages us to understand vibrational energy. They communicate through sonar. Um, they live in pods. They are very social creatures. They're very intelligent creatures. They protect and look out for one another. They sing to one another. So it's another message to play, to sing, to not necessarily take everything so seriously as life or death. That life is short and that we need to take time to appreciate one another. It shows us that our emotions can be deep and can be, if we are able to feel them, we can move through them. This is one of the things that we talk about with the moon in Scorpio versus Taurus, like feeling something immediately and then letting go. Emotions are supposed to pass through us instead of hanging on to them. And my Scorpio moon father says, I can choose to feel this emotion and I can crush it into a ball and say, I'm not going to feel that today. And I'm like, that doesn't sound healthy, bud. So feel your feelings. If you have some sadness through this opposition, that's okay. Feel those feelings and sit with it for a little bit. And this too shall pass. Whales, I think that they show us that they represent ancient wisdom and being able to tap into this kind of universal ancient part of ourselves. They live a long time. They're these large, beautiful creatures. And when we're able to tap into this ancient knowledge and start to see things in context of a much longer cycle, that can help us relax in the moment. This is something that I really try to practice, is seeing life in context of meta cycles rather than just about what I'm feeling in this moment, because emotions are going to rise and pass away. And there's going to be much bigger forces outside of what we're experiencing in that moment, for better or for worse. So that does two things. It helps the highs not get carried away with the highs and say that, oh, if something's going great, that it's always going to be that way, and just assuming it's going to be like that, which gives us gratitude for that moment. And it also brings those lows up and says, you know what? Even if things seem dire and hopeless right now, especially as I'm recording this in Pisces 3, we can have the heights of ecstasy and the depths of despair. That's not a permanent condition either. Like that this too shall pass, and that the sun will shine again. That the sun is going to dry up some of that Piscean emotion, and we'll find joy, we'll find vitality, hopefully again. So that is what I have for you. Sing your own whale song, connect with your pod, and feel your feelings and feel the depths of your emotions with it. But don't get fixated on them. Let them pass through you, like a whale glides through water, passes through the emotions, and just floats. Like they're not in a hurry. Like they're just floating. And sometimes when they open their mouth, the food just comes to them. Like they've got the krill that comes through that baleen, and they're just accepting the abundance that's coming to them. So that's another way we can look at it. All right. Well, friends, that is what I have for you today. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. Do me a huge favor. Like and subscribe. Follow me over at spencermichaud.com. Subscribe to me on Instagram and Twitter and Threads at Spencer Michaud. And just be kind to one another. Eclipse season is a big chapter marker. Live into the answers. Even though we've got a strong Aries signature, kindness, defaulting to kindness still is a good way to be. But remember to include yourself in the equation this time. Being kind to yourself doesn't mean that you're a pushover. It doesn't mean that you have to acquiesce to everything that everyone wants to do. It doesn't mean you have to run roughshod over everyone else. It just means that when you're trying to find a solution, you should be part of the equation as well. So have a great weekend, friends. Have a great eclipse season. I think we'll see you again, hopefully next week. And this is what I've got. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for this late super sticker, Laura Elizabeth. Appreciate you. Says, thank you, Spencer. Great support for these eclipses. Big Steph. Thank you for being here today. Messages. Thank you for hanging out. And love all of you. And we'll see you the next time. Peace.